Did you guys enjoy lunch? Chips and guac, you can't go wrong with that. My favorite. So our next guest is dedicated to the pursuit of athletic excellence through harnessing the power of the mind. As the head of sports and fitness at Headspace, Lindsay Shafer is working to create the future of sports. Please join me in welcoming Lindsay Shafer.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? It's pretty inspiring to be around this amazing group of women. This is the time in the day where maybe you're in a little bit of a food coma, the energy lulls a little bit, maybe the attention fades. So I'm the lucky one to bring you guys back in to be fully present. You with me? Okay, cool. So as you guys can see and already know, my name is Lindsay Shafer. I'm the head of sports and fitness at Headspace. Who here has heard of Headspace? Wow, that's way more hands than I was expecting. That's amazing. And who here has tried meditation? Okay, cool. This is going to be really fun. A lot more hands than what I was expecting. A fun stat that I just want to start with to make sure that you guys are fully present and getting the most out of this experience for the rest of the afternoon. So science has shown that 50% of our day, in our waking hours, we spend lost in thought. That means about half of our life is just going by us and we're not mentally present where we physically are. But today, we're going to work on some skills and tools to help you guys build your focus skills, be able to be present again so that you maximize your experiences. There's been increased dialogue around the mind in sport. I don't know if you guys have seen in the media, but there's been a lot of talk around mental health in sport. And some of the best teams and leagues in the world are turning to Headspace as a mental health solution for their athletes. For all of those conversations, we always bring it back to be about performance rather than mental health. And that's because if we position meditation and Headspace as a tool for mental health, then we perpetuate a reactive approach to the mind rather than a proactive approach to the mind. By making it about performance, we educate athletes and coaches on how we can train the mind for a competitive advantage, just like we now train our bodies for a competitive advantage. But this is a new concept in sport, one of a mental training tool for performance. Throughout the history of sport, it's been all about training the body, right? So we take hundreds of shots a day. We pay attention to what we eat. We do ice bath and heat bath and stim and massage. But we're neglecting the one thing that underlies everything that we do, right? And I don't think that's because any athlete or coach would argue that the mental game is important. LeBron James has said that 90% of the game is mental. I think it's because instead athletes and coaches haven't known that you can proactively train the brain, let alone how you would do that, even if you knew you could, right? So what we're doing is we work with a lot of elite athletes across the NBA, WNBA, NFL, a lot of US Olympic teams, and we're educating them on how meditation is like strength training for the brain. You want a stronger bicep, you do bicep curls. That increases blood flow to the bicep muscle and builds the muscle mass. You want a stronger mind, you do meditation. And listen up, because this part is really cool. This is the only thing you hear me say, but hopefully you hear everything I say. So the science behind meditation shows that it increases the thickness of the gray matter of the prefrontal cortex. That's the area of your brain where focus comes from. And it decreases the size of the amygdala, which is where stress and fear comes from. All athletes know that they play their best when they're focused or in the zone and not playing from a place of fear. And again, that's not just relevant to athletics. That's relevant to your academics and being a student and all other areas of your life as well. We also talk to athletes about how the science behind meditation and how it supports key aspects of preparation, performance, and recovery. And again, I think that you'll see that this isn't just relevant for sport, but relevant to your lives and your studies and outside. So when we look at preparation, first, I'm going to talk about focus. So the science behind meditation has shown that it increases focus in just 10 days by 14%. So you don't need to go become a Buddhist monk and meditate for years and years and years before you start to see any significant benefits. In just 10 days, 14%, that's a pretty impressive stat, right? The second thing is brain activity. So long-term meditators, we've seen in academic research that they have more sustained gamma activity. Gamma waves are associated with information processing and memory retention, as well as, again, focus. I'm sure, again, as students, you can understand how some memory retention and focus would help you in your academic pursuits, right? When we talk about performance, we're going to look at the mental grit part of this slide. So if we think about sports, meditation has been shown to deactivate networks in our brain associated with overthinking. So as an athlete, that might mean being able to let go of a bad play and stay in the present and focused on the play at hand. Again, as students, I'm sure you can see how overthinking could help you in your overall well-being, right? Or decreasing your overthinking could help you in your overall well-being. And then when we talk about recovery, recovery is a really hot topic in sport, and sleep and HRV, or heart rate variability, being two of the key topics. So the meditation research shows that meditation is better for sleep quality or more effective for sleep quality than sleep classes. And what we're realizing more and more as more research is done on sleep, of course it's important for recovery for athletes, but it's really important for all of our healths, even outside of sport. And then when we think about sleep, it's not just the number of hours that we sleep. I think that we're starting to understand more, it's about the quality of that sleep. So our sleep cycles and phases. And so meditation has been shown to really improve that sleep quality. If we talk about heart rate variability, so heart rate variability is a measure of the balance in our parasympathetic and sympathetic states. So sympathetic state is like your fight or flight response, and your parasympathetic state is your relaxed response. When a lot of coaches and athletes come to us, it's because after a game, athletes have a really hard time coming down. And when you think of NBA athletes, for example, they play pretty late at night. And then they've got to get good sleep quality so that they can come back prepared to play the next day. But they're going over and over every play they made in their minds. They're really, amped up from the game they just played, having thousands and thousands of people scream their name, and they have a really hard time coming down into that relaxed state. So meditation has been shown to help put you back into that relaxed state, which again, I think all of us can relate to, right? You go to bed at night and you're replaying everything that happened in your day. Maybe overthinking that test or that class that you didn't feel like you had prepared for, and instead of being able to let go of it, stay in the present and move on. Awesome. So I know what you're thinking. This Lindsay chick, she's really cool. I think she's onto something. I think meditation sounds amazing, but wait a second, what the heck is meditation? Because I haven't really told you that yet. So I'm going to turn to one of our amazing Headspace animations that will do a better job of explaining it than I would.
Training the mind is often quite different to how people imagine it to be. Maybe they have an idea it's about stopping thoughts or eliminating feelings, but the reality is a bit different. An easy way to think of it is to imagine yourself sitting on the side of a busy road, the passing cars representing the thoughts and the feelings. All you have to do is to sit there and watch the cars. Sounds easy, right? But what usually happens is that we feel a bit unsettled by the movement of the traffic. So we run out into the road and try and stop the cars, or maybe even chase after a few, forgetting that the idea was to just sit here. And of course, all of this running around only adds to the feeling of restlessness in the mind. So training the mind is about changing our relationship with the passing thoughts and feelings, learning how to view them with a little more perspective. And when we do this, we naturally find a place of calm. Will we sometimes forget the idea of the exercise and become distracted? Of course we will. But as soon as we remember, here we are, back on the side of the road again, just watching the traffic go by, perfectly at ease in both body and mind.
Did you guys see the little character chasing after the hot dog car? That's my favorite part. As somebody that thinks a lot about food, that's my favorite part. But one of the things that I really want to point out in this video is that a common misconception of meditation is that it's about stopping your thoughts. It's impossible to stop your thoughts. What thoughts are neurons firing in your brain. If you go into meditation thinking it's going to stop your thoughts, you will be discouraged, you will think it doesn't work for you, and you won't stick with it. What meditation is, it's changing your relationship with your thoughts so that you're able to recognize a thought and let it go, instead of grabbing onto it, going down a rabbit hole with it, or buying into it as your truth, right? What Headspace is it's a personal meditation coach right in your pocket. So we have over 1,000 hours of guided meditation in the Headspace app. There is, of course, content made specifically for athletes, but there's also content on stress and anxiety and mindful eating and sleep. And there's content designed specifically for students around test taking and helping you to, again, focus for your studies, but also to manage the anxiety that comes with test taking. There's also everything from 20-minute exercises down to 1-minute exercises. So if you're having a little moment where you need to do a breathing exercise before going into something like a test, you can just do that 1-minute mini, okay? And all of our teachings in the app are from our meditation expert, Andy. So authentic expertise is a huge thing at Headspace. We ground everything that we do in authentic expertise. Andy was a Buddhist monk for 10 years. He used to do something like meditate 18 hours a day. He lived in solitude. He had a passion to bring the teachings of meditation in a non-religious way to the world. And so at that point, he left the monastery. He first went back to the UK, and with our CEO and co-founder, Rich, started working on what is now the Headspace app. Okay, again, you're like, you've sold me, this is amazing, I want to do it, stop talking, I want to meditate. So we're going to do that together. What we're going to do is we're going to do basics 1. So if you went into the Headspace app, you would start with the basics. It's the onboarding experience. It's a 10-session course that teaches you the basics of meditation. So we're going to do the first session together, and we're going to do it for 3 minutes. Are you guys down? Can I get a whoop whoop? I wanted to say hell yeah, but then I thought I shouldn't, but then I did it anyways. Okay, cool.
Hi. Over the next 10 sessions, I'm going to show you a really simple way of getting some more headspace in your life. Don't worry if you've never done anything like this before. This is a really straightforward technique, and I'm going to talk you through every step of the way. But all you need to do right now is to sit back and relax. So make sure that you're sitting comfortably. I'd actually like you to begin with your eyes open and just taking a big deep breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, just feeling the lungs expand as they fill with air. And as you breathe out, just feeling the body soften a little bit as you gently close the eyes. And you can just allow the breath to return to its natural rhythm, in and out of the nose. And as you pause for a moment, just noticing the feeling of the body, the weight of the body pressing down against the seat beneath you. Contact of the feet on the floor, the hands and the arms on the legs. Noticing any sounds around you. And as you pause, just noticing how the body feels. Starting to notice how the body's breathing, that movement of breath in the body. So some people feel it in the stomach. For others it's in the chest or around the diaphragm. Not breathing in any special way. We're just starting to notice that rising and falling sensation. If you can't feel anything, just gently placing your hand on the stomach. Now as you follow that movement, the mind will wander away, almost inevitably. No problem if it does, perfectly natural. But as soon as you realize it's wandered, just acknowledging that, letting it go, and just coming back again to that rising and falling sensation. And then just for a moment now, letting go of any focus on the breath, just letting the mind do whatever it wants, just for a few seconds. If it wants to think, let it think. And then bringing the attention back to the body, back to that feeling of contact, back to any sounds around you. And you can just gently open your eyes in your own time. So how does it feel having taken a few minutes out of the day? Does the body feel any different? Does the mind feel any different? Don't worry if there's still lots of thoughts running around. That's perfectly normal. Remember, this is a skill we're learning, and it takes a little bit of time. But before you do jump up, before you get on with things, just take a few moments just to appreciate that feeling, to really acknowledge what it's like to take some time out, to allow the body and the mind to unwind. And I look forward to seeing you back here soon for session 2.
So I've never meditated on a stage in front of a lot of people. I just realized when I was doing that, it was first for everything, right? So raise your hand if you found yourself getting distracted at least a couple times and being like, oh my gosh, my brain is way down the road, let me bring it back. Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? And that was 3 minutes. So it's when we do something like this, we realize, you know, how much opportunity we have to work on our focus skills, right? I think it's really interesting when we think about sports, because we have coaches yell at us like, focus, get your head in the game, things like that, right? But yet we never spend any time working on our focus skills. We don't do any mental training. And we would never expect our bodies to be able to perform something without working for years and years and years at it, right? Like I would never, if I'm a professional basketball player, expect to hit 90% from the free throw line without working on my shot for decades. So why do I expect that my mind will be able to just be focused because I need it to be, or because I know what's best for me to help me play in the game or perform at school, when I'm not actually training it to be able to do so? So we have 1 month free trial for all of you guys to Headspace so that you can stick with it and keep trying it if you're interested to do so. The other thing that I want to make sure you know, something that we pushed hard for at Headspace, and we understand what it's like to be in college, and there's some stresses that come along with that, is that we have a student pricing plan. So typically a Headspace subscription is like $96 a year. For college students, it's $9.99. So you can get that if you're interested to at the headspace.com/student plan. And I hope that you learned something today. I hope you're fully present to get the best out of this experience, and thank you for your attention.
Wake up, wake up. Did they hypnotize you? I thought it was meditation. You guys will start to love meditation as you get older, trust me. When you have kids, you're gonna need it. So next, we're gonna move on to our second Breaking Barriers panel. If you guys thought the first one was good, wait till you see this group that we have lined up. It's a bunch of entrepreneurs and women who hold prominent positions in corporations. Let's start and help me give a warm welcome to Rosemary St. Clair. She's the Vice President and GM of Nike Women's Business. Next, we have Monica Rutsky, excuse me. Vice President of Marketing at Budweiser. Come on, you guys a little louder than that. You got to thank her for your beer. Next, we have Leslie Osborne. Former U.S. Women's National Team player, part of the 2007 World Cup team, broadcaster, entrepreneur, ex-teammate of mine, and current teammate of mine, I should add. Next, we have Erin McGee, founder of Made Me. For those of you who don't know, Made Me is a peerless by girls, for girls brand, and it was actually originated here in New York City in 2007. And finally, we bring out Dr. Celine Gounder. She's practicing an HIV infectious disease specialist, journalist, and filmmaker, and she was one of People's Magazine's 25 Women Changing the World in 2017. Welcome, everyone. Okay, Celine, I want to start with you, because if you're on the People's list, we want to speak to you. So before you actually made that list, you actually held a prominent role in the faculty position at Johns Hopkins University, and you made a difficult decision to leave that post. Why?
So I think, it's an interesting profession, medicine. You are you have a prolonged adolescence in a sense, because you go to school, and you go to school, and you go to some more school. And you don't really finish until you're in your 30s by the time you finish, all of your training and your residency and all of that. And, I think because you're jumping hoops after hoop after hoop, you don't have a chance to really step back and think about necessarily, where is your career headed in a sense. And I had just come back from, so I finished training, had stayed on faculty at Hopkins, was spending a lot of time working in sub-Saharan Africa at the time. My husband actually lived in South Africa prior to the World Cup there, which was actually great for him because he got to know the country before the 2010 World Cup. And what I started to see was it almost felt like we were mining these populations for what we could use as academics, right? So academic medicine is funded on the basis if you apply for grants to fund your work, and then you publish papers, and then you use that to get more grants, and it's sort of this ongoing cycle, and that's how you support your career. And so it's sort of like we're mining these populations for data to support our grants and our publications, but how were we actually giving back to the very people we were studying? And the more I thought about that and saw this firsthand in my work, it really just ethically was something that I really struggled with. And so eventually did leave just because I just didn't feel like it was a setting that would really allow for me to give back in the way that I wanted to.
And now that you've done that, were the challenges in transitioning into what you would consider your modern role?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I had multiple transitions, and I think that's the thing that can be challenging, right? Because I was on this track for years and years, and then you have this idea of what your career is going to look like, and then it's sort of like, wow, gosh, this is really not what I thought it was going to be. And then, sometimes you have to try a couple different things to get to where you want to be. So I ended up taking a job here in New York City as an assistant commissioner at the Department of Health, running one of the bureaus, and that wasn't quite the right fit for me either. And so tried a whole lot of different things. Did some started to pivot towards media and journalism around 2012. So that was more of a mix of some television, some writing, some podcasting. And I think what I realized in health and medicine, it's really poorly communicated in the media. And in fact, there's a group up at Harvard that studies journalism and how is it done. And one of their comments was that it's, and I see this myself, is a lot of what you see, and even the New York Times, is highly reliant on a press release. They don't have access to the journal articles I can read. You know, these are all people I'm around all the time. And so the quality of what you get in the 3 bullet points on NBC News or on CNN or what you even hear on NPR is barely scratching the surface. And so I really felt like there was a need to tell more nuanced stories. And you know, it's important because it's not just about your personal decision making. You know, we've heard about the vaccine controversy. There's this young boy, I think Ethan was his name, who testified on the Hill this week about the conflict he's had with his mom about whether he should be vaccinating. So there's obviously the personal decision making, but then there's also the bigger picture policy decision making that occurs. So, you know, you guys might remember during the midterm elections of 2014, there was a lot of debate around Ebola. Should we shut our borders? You know, that has huge impacts on policy and how things are funded. And I just felt there was a need for more responsible health journalism because it really does have an impact.
And how are you doing that? Is it through largely your podcast?
So a lot of television actually around the time of Ebola. I think my frustration with that was that, again, it's you can, because of the time, because of the way it's structured, the format doesn't allow for you to get into a lot of depth. And I think what's been interesting is I've explored different types of media. When you look at, you know, a very short news story on TV, or if you look at how long people read material online, and we, you know, people can track that, right? So we know around 800 to 1,200 words is sort of the sweet spot for a written article. And again, that doesn't give you much space. And what's interesting about podcasting is at least the data so far shows if people start to listen to a podcast, if they get in for about 2 minutes, they will most of them will listen till the end. Even if it's a 40-minute podcast, once people get started, they'll usually listen. And it's because they're commuting or they're cooking or they're doing laundry at the same time, and they kind of can do different things. And so it just allows you to tell a richer story. So yeah, that's why I really gravitated towards that later.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you. And so getting people's attention and keeping people's attention is something you've mastered and something you know a bit about, Monica. So I guess my question for you, for Budweiser in general, is historically, stereotypically, when we think of beer commercials, it's largely utilized women to entice men to imbibe. You know, have you seen a shift in this approach?
Absolutely, and actually this is perfect timing. For those of you that were not able to see a campaign that we launched yesterday, we actually reimagined some of our advertising from the 1950s and 60s, where women maybe were not portrayed in the most balanced fashion. Definitely a reflection of the times, but we used that as a launch pad to really bring forth a long-term commitment we have in conjunction with See Her, which is a movement that is committed to seeing the accurate portrayal of women in advertising. So yesterday we took our advertisements from the past and reimagined the leading ladies in each of these advertisements to show them in a more balanced fashion, because I think there are many times where people don't even know what that really means. You know, what does balance mean? And for us, it's showing them in a more positive fashion, more empowered. So for us at Budweiser specifically, this has been something that we've been committed to for the last 10 years. But yesterday we really formalized it to make sure that we have a continuous lens on this day in and day out. And just one really big part there is Budweiser, obviously an iconic beer brand, but we're also a leader in the advertising industry. So for us, it was not only responsibility of ours, but it's our duty to the advertising industry to sort of take this conscious step moving forward.
Within the framework of what you do now, and I would say your previous career, they're very different.
Yes.
You were a producer, you wrote music for J-Lo, for Pitbull, you performed.
Yeah.
You know, how did you I'm noticing it in all of these women up here, their stories are similar in the sense that you guys all have shifts in your careers. You know, what drew you to both of these fields, and how did you even jump from that ship to here?
Yeah, and really random, I also worked at Nike for 2 months. It's interesting, like in hindsight, everything makes sense. I understand what each step that I took did to get me to where I am today, which I would honestly say I'm turning 36 next month. I'm finally sitting in a place where I'm like, I love what I do. I understand my calling, but there was 15 years where I was really not sure where I was going, but I knew that I wanted to get to something I loved. So yeah, I was in the music industry and I knew that I wanted to touch people in a certain way. And at that point I was like, the number one thing I love is music. Let me try it through that, but ultimately I had some shifts, but I was never afraid to commit myself 100% to something, if you call it my flavor of the 5 years, and I would commit myself and have very honest checkpoints with myself and say, okay, am I fulfilled? Is this 100% where I want to be? And to not have the fear to make a change. And for me, it was never failure. It was more always just this journey to get to where I want. But yes, many jobs. There's many that you don't even know. I bartended, I worked at a dentist's office, but I was always in action and in the pursuit of figuring out what I wanted to do.
What makes you know you're in the right spot now?
I think the biggest piece is, of course, I'm proud of the work I'm putting forward, but ultimately, I think it's day in and day out going into work and waking up before my alarm clock. So I'll set it at 5:30 in the morning, but I will always wake up at 5:29. And I think that is always a signal to me that I'm really excited about what I want to do. And on the flip side, it's like sometimes I will look at the clock and say, see, it's 7 o'clock and be like, put your computer down. And it's because I'm insanely passionate about what I'm doing. And I would add one other thing. I think it's also the people I work with. I feel incredibly empowered and challenged by everybody I work with. I know some of my team members are here as well. And to just continuously get that energy from people, I know that I have landed in a place where I'm with like-minded individuals, and some not. You know, the diversity of thought is very important, but I would say those things collectively are really where I know that I've hit that sweet spot of what I want to do.
Well, Leslie, are you in your sweet spot? You've now shifted from being a professional soccer player, and now you're an entrepreneur. You launched Sweat Cosmetics with 4 of your girlfriends. Are you in your sweet spot?
Yeah, absolutely I'm in my sweet spot. I feel so blessed to have played soccer my whole life, and I think there's a lot of you soccer players out there. I think it's really scary to think about that next step and what are you gonna do after you're done playing a sport, especially when you feel like it's part of your identity, or maybe what other people have made you feel like that's your identity. So for me to play soccer, which I love to do, and for me to transition out of that and find something that I'm so passionate about, absolutely. I love what I do. To give a little bit of background about what Sweat Cosmetics is I am part of a company that 4 of my other teammates, Lindsay is another Olympic gold medalist, and my other 3 partners played professional soccer with me. We found a huge gap in the market, and we wanted to create products for women that lived active lifestyles. And for nowadays, everyone's on the go, going from one thing to the next. And we create sun care, sunscreen, and also cosmetics products for the active woman. And now that I'm a mother, I have 2 young babies. I'm the target market. I'm living my dream. I get to work with a company, my former teammates. I'm still part of a team, which I think everyone wants to feel part of a team. And we're doing something, you know, that's really challenging. We walk into a boardroom, or we try to raise some money, and we walk into a room of all men. You know, that's challenging. But you know what? Being an athlete at the highest level has helped prepare me for those moments. So yeah, I think I am in my sweet spot, and I feel so blessed to have so many cool and amazing role models that help prepare me for this opportunity, and also my network to give me the confidence to go after this, because it is scary to be female founded and run and to be in a very tough industry.
Why do you think that? Why is it intimidating to walk into a room with all men?
Yeah, you know, it can be very intimidating because we went straight from being athletes to being entrepreneurs, and there's a learning curve there. But soccer gave me more skills and traits than anything in my life has ever given me. So Do you think I was scared playing in a World Cup, semifinal or final? Absolutely. But those moments help prepare me for that, and the skill set of the dedication and passion and commitment and competitiveness, that all gives us confidence to be able to walk into a room, to have that confidence and know that we are confident and we can do anything. And being part of a team still allows me to feel that way. So I think that, having the sport background, athletic background, has helped prepare us for this moment, because I do think that we could have folded, walking into rooms and not having that experience that a lot of people in our industry do have. From going to an athlete, to an entrepreneur, it can be scary, but you know what? They don't have what we have. And since we performed at the highest level and we have achieved the highest success possible, that gives us to be able to, open our shoulders and feel really good about what we're doing and go after our dreams.
What would you say then to these young women who perhaps are going to go and play collegiately, or they're going to transition just from college into a job? What can they do right now to make that transition easier and prepare themselves?
I think that's like the best question you can ask, and the fact that we're asking and talking about it now is the first step, because I know in college we didn't have that. No one was talking to us, playing college soccer about, well, what are you going to do after college? You're so in the moment. You're going after your dream. You're putting in so much work. You've got one goal in mind, to be the best player, to win, or to go get a national championship. Then no one's really talking about it. And then you have players that get hurt. And for me, a blessing in disguise is I tore my ACL after making the 2008 Olympic team. And I had to take a couple steps back and go, no, 1 out of 10 doctors said I would be able to play soccer again, okay? So at that moment, I had an opportunity to figure out, what am I passionate about? What else do I want to do? And that's when I got into working for nonprofits. That's when I did my first TV gig. That's when I started thinking about going to business school, is when that moment happens when you're like, what's next? So for in college, I would love to start a program in college athletics and also in the professional leagues. No one's talking about in the NWSL, in the MLS, what are you going to do after soccer? Because that is your identity. You don't even know what you're good at that point. I used to see resumes come in at Santa Clara University where athletes didn't even put on the header Division I athlete. For so many companies want to hire athletes like you that have skill sets that not a lot of people out there have. They're teachable. Some people can teach them, but you don't understand the platform that you have. So I would, 3 things. 1, take your platform and extend your network. Get to know people. The power of your network is probably, I think, in my opinion, the biggest thing you can have. Build relationships and network. Second of all, try new things. Find out what you're passionate about. A lot of players go and coach. That's great. But what if you don't want to coach? Or what if that's not your calling? So find out what else you're passionate about. Do a couple different things. And 3, start preparing. It's okay to think about, well, what am I going to do post? That doesn't mean that you're done. That doesn't mean you're not fully committed. That just means that you're actually smarter and thinking ahead of time. So when that moment does come, and when I did retire from professional soccer, my transition was very easy, because I watched people that went through some really dark times, and I watched people like Allie transition very positively and go after and continue to break barriers. So use your platform and start now thinking about what's post.
Awesome. Wow. Your work here is done.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is that true,
I
Erin?
want to do like 20 push-ups. I'm like, yeah.
You got your shoes on. You can do it.
That was really
I'm
good.
waiting for it.
Wait, now I have to talk? Great.
Yes, you do. It made me. You had the vision for it. Would you be interested in hiring athletes first? But I want
I'm hiring her.
Yeah, all right. Is she gonna run everything?
Yeah, cool.
What was?
I don't know if I can afford you, but it's there. So I'm taking a bit of your advice, and I'm going to say I too was a Division I soccer player, which I never talk about. So cool, thanks.
Wow. That's great.
And I actually transitioned from playing soccer and accidentally fell into fashion, similar to like what you're describing. When I was graduating, I had no idea what I was going to do. In college, you're kind of in this weird place where like tomorrow seems like 10 years down the road. So you're like, who cares, you know? And I played Division I soccer at Hofstra University, and I wasn't as good as these two, but I was okay. And the head of Umbro, which was a sportswear brand at the time, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that name, but
do they still exist? That's all that matters.
But did it? I think, yeah. Okay, so the head of Umbro and his family would come and watch my games, and I would sign their autographs after the game and stuff like that. And then and the father, who was the head of Umbro, he said, "What are you doing when you graduate?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I have this like European trip booked with my sister to like backpack across Europe because that was like cool then." And
Still cool.
and yeah, okay, it's still cool. And he was like, "Do you want to be my assistant?" And I was like, "Sure. I like really have nothing else going on, so totally." And he was like, "Okay, cool. Our headquarters is in Manchester, so when you're backpacking with your sister, hit up Manchester, and we'll have you do your first onboarding for your first job." And I was like, "All right, great. My first business trip to Europe." Like I was like, "I made it." So I did that, and I kind of like fell into fashion through sport. So and kind of totally accidentally, but I always liked fashion. But since I was actually playing basketball too at Hofstra, so I was a two-sport athlete, and I was so hyper-focused on sports and academics because I was like this crazy overachiever. I didn't have like a chance to really think about what my interests were, like you were touching on. But I was really interested in all these like subcultures and fashion and weird music, and I was really into like Riot Girl and Deloitte, and I was a huge Madonna fan, and like, but I never really understood that the connection between those things was fashion. And so working at Umbro, my boss was more interested in kind of like high-level business things, but I was interested in like what were the cool things I could get my hands into. So I don't know if you guys know Kim Jones, but he's the head at Dior, and he used to be the head at Louis Vuitton. But Kim Jones was doing a collaboration with Umbro at the time, and my boss didn't want to have anything to do with it. It sounded like a disease to him. Like, Kim Jones, what is this weird fashion stuff? And he let me manage it, and I was really, really into it. And then this brand called Supreme called the phone one day, and I just happened to pick up the phone. And I picked up the phone, and I was like, "Hi," and he was like, "Hi, I'm calling from Supreme. I've been calling Umbro like nonstop for months, dying to do a soccer jersey collaboration." Again, sport like playing into my life, and I was like, "Yeah, cool. Let me talk to my boss and see if he's down." I was like 23 and like willing to do anything. So I talked to my boss, and I said, "There's this really cool new brand called Supreme, and they want to work with us. And trust me, this is a really good thing." And he was like, "I don't want to hear about it. Just you handle it and like get off my back." So I was like, "Great." And I went down to Soho and worked with Supreme and worked on 2 seasons of Umbro Supreme soccer jersey collaborations. And then the owner of Supreme said, "I really like you. You're a really hard worker. Do you want to work here?" And I was like, "Well, I guess." and he was like, "How much do you make?" And I was like, $40,000 a year. And he was like, "How's 45?" I was like, "Sold."
But you were really making 30, right?
Yeah.
I hope you upsold
I was really
yourself,
making 30,
right?
guys.
Yeah.
So I took the job, and that opened like so many more doors to me. I got to help build one of the most successful and important and relevant fashion brands in the world. And out of that, I started my own brand called Made Me, which is a young women's contemporary fashion brand. And I started Made Me kind of out of this feeling that, at Supreme, it's a very male-focused, male-driven, male-identified, we make men's clothes, that's what we do, brand. And I always felt like, even though I was really signed up for that, it wasn't truthfully me all the time, Like, there was this whole other side of things that I wanted to get into, and there was all these other girls that I knew that I wanted to support, other artists, musicians, young designers, that at the time, Supreme and no fault to Supreme, it just wasn't supporting that because it was a men's brand. That's just what the focus was, you know? And so I thought, there's this whole other side of me that wanted to do the same kind of thing for women. So I started Made Me as this little side art project that turned into a cool business, and yeah.
Okay, you're making that sound way too easy.
Yeah.
I find it really hard to believe that you just fell into
Don't
that.
undersell yourself, guys, like me.
Yes.
On a stage.
Please just give us one nugget on some of the challenges that you faced to get into that spot, because I doubt that you just moved up with an Umbro and then you just barely were wanted by Supreme.
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, I always told myself, and I tell every young person I hire the exact same thing, because I always told myself, you may not be as talented as the person next to you. I wasn't as talented as a soccer player as you guys, but I could wake up earlier than you guys, and I could stay later than you guys, and I could try harder than you guys. And I always told myself that no matter what job I was in, if I was at Umbro, or I was playing soccer, or I was at Supreme, or with Made Me, there's going to be people that are more talented than you. There's going to be people where things come easier to them than it does to you, but you can always put in more effort than the next person, and that's kind of, it worked for me. It just worked for me. I always woke up earlier than the next person. I did my emails before I even went to work, so that I could, when I got to work, I could focus on building my team and building strategy, you know, so yeah.
It's fantastic. And Rosemary, I know that you probably have that same work ethic and drive at Nike. My biggest question for you is that Nike's always been at the forefront, I think, in pushing women's sport, if you will. But there's always been a perception that it doesn't sell in the marketplace as much. And how has your company been able to balance, if you will, that financial reality that's been there, and knowing that you also do craft the narrative for women and women in sport going forward?
Sure. Well, first, welcome to Nike. The office is like this every day.
Yeah.
I've never seen this space built like this, but welcome. Glad you guys are here. We just feel like there's just tremendous momentum right now around women's sport. And we want to inspire and invest in the next generation, because we all know we are better when sport is involved in our lives. And that's sport, however we deem to define it. So it can be, you know, traditional soccer sports, it can be traditional team sports like soccer, it could be yoga, it can be anything, but we know we're better with that. I think for our brand, we are committed to using it as a catalyst to be able to tell that story and let young girls be seen what it means to them to be in sport. So if you've seen the latest, you know, launched a couple weeks ago, our latest ad around Dream Crazier, so those crazy dreams, but just when we're out talking to young consumers, their ask is show us like what it could be. And so I think that is the best representation of showing the next generation of what it means to be in sport, and dream crazy, because people are going to tell you can't do something, or you gotta believe in your dream and get there.
And as an organization or corporation, you have to think about the profit factor. And getting to this point now, there's a ton of momentum, but again, you guys were always the ones kind of pushing women into, I think, the marketing place, if you will, utilizing women role models. Why has that always been, I think, I guess, a focus for Nike, and who's pushing that?
Well, we will grow the sport market for sure. And there's plenty of growth out there. When Nike gets behind something, we can grow. We know we can grow an entire market around that. And I think the investment that we're making in grassroots, that stuff, of course, it pays off. But what I'm most passionate about is, I don't know if you know the stats, but most 12-year-old girls drop out of sport by age 12. It's not a good experience for them, and they don't want to play anymore, and they don't want to participate. And so our investments in grassroots efforts, where we're helping to train and train coaches on how to coach, and providing mentorship to female coaches so that they can create a positive experience for girls to continue to play sport, because we want them to stay in sport. Sport is important and it's powerful for them, and you guys all know what it means to be on a team. And just listening to we all gained experiences from playing team sports. I didn't play soccer, by the way. I just want to be
We
clear.
forgive you.
I tried it once. It's exhausting. Anyway.
I'm sure running a company is not.
But we know the power of playing on a team and what it means to be part of a team and what experiences you gain from that. We want to make sure that that is happening for the next generation. And we have a responsibility in that at Nike. But we all have a responsibility in that with the media and with everyone that's involved in sport. I think when you see the joy that happens on the field or the pitch or the court or the track for female athletes or women that play sports or young girls that are playing, you just can't contain that. That is a contagious, infectious joy that spreads, and we want to make sure that that more girls have that experience. It's important.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we're going to open it up for questions in the room. If anyone has one, if you don't, I have more, so I'm going to be generous. Go ahead. We don't need a mic, you're close, right? Oh, maybe you do, so they can hear you in the back. I apologize. Yell, Lucy.
It's on its way. It's on its way.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So my name's Lucy. I have a huge passion for sports and getting into the industry. And I've recently thought about maybe starting my own kind of company or business within that. Leslie or Erin, what's kind of like or anyone really, but like piece of advice to like make that step? Obviously, I'm also fresh out of college, so I obviously need to like gain some experience as well. But that first step, like, do you have any advice on like how to make that step or that, the next point?
Go for it. Okay, I'll start. First of all, good for you. The fact that you already have that is amazing. My best advice would say, take your time. When we came up with this idea while we were playing, it took us 3 years before we actually launched. So when people see us, we're in Sephora, we're in Anthropologie, we're on Revolve, we're everywhere. People look at us like, oh my God, how did you guys just blow up? And we're like, this is going back to like 2011, 12, right? Where we came up with the idea. And then it's like, okay, you've got the idea, now prove it. Doing the data, doing the research. Then it's like, okay, finding the chemist. We found our chemist through Twitter, which is so ironic, but cool, right? So I talk about the power of your network. It goes back to that. So take your time. For us, we felt like we had one shot at it, right? Like these athletes starting their own company. So we had to make sure we had everything dialed in. So take your time. Make sure you bring on people to your team that make up for your weaknesses. Because not everybody can be part of a company with 3, 4, 5 people, and truly it's hard at times, but at the same time, we complement each other. And what my weaknesses are, my partner can make up for that and vice versa. But I would, at the end of the day, make sure you bring on people to help you, use your network, and take your time. Because once you do go live, there ain't no turning back. And once you have investors and friends and family and people invested in your company, they believe in you, but they're also pushing you and watching you go succeed. So just take your time.
I would say, I'm not sure if you know what kind of industry or company you're interested in.
Yeah, I want to leverage sports among girls, like you said, to like help not just girls but also boys to like find their passion and then give them the tools and resources to get recruited if that's the path they want to take. Just because I came from a really small town and my parents had no idea what recruiting is, so just having that knowledge would help those kids out.
I would say look at a company that already exists similar to what you want to do and either study that company or go get a job at that company. That's basically what I did. I got a job at Supreme and learned. I would never know how to start my own clothing company if I hadn't worked there, you know. So, and really pay attention to all aspects of the business. When it's almost like a paid internship, but don't take it as like kids how they take their internships where they're just like going out for lunch and stuff. Really pay attention. You know, you're getting paid and pay attention. You know, and really take everything you learn. And you know what else you can do is you can see when you're in the whatever company you get the job at and just see, I would do that better. Or this is something I would want to improve, and then implement that when you start your own business. And it's also it's the dark reality that you need money. you're going to need money, you know? And it's like, I remember I sold my Mini Cooper for $20,000. And that's how I started my company. I sold my car and I took the train everywhere. So you're gonna need some money, and it sounds like there's different ways to get it. But you also have to think about that. I mean, you can raise money or you can use your own money. Yeah.
You're going to need money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're going to need.
Yeah.
And time. Awesome, thank you. Anyone in the back?
Hi, my name's Francesca. I was just wondering, you guys have all been in very busy positions and high up positions, and I feel like a lot of what stops women from being able to do that is having a family or maintaining relationships and all of that stuff. So how have you guys managed to maintain close relationships with your family, have a work-life balance? Because I feel like that can be difficult as you progress in your career.
Good question.
Oh, we should ask Allie since she's
No, I'm not a panelist. I don't know the answer. Go ahead, please.
I think it's a myth that there's actually balance. But we can talk it out. It's just sometimes it's not balanced, and sometimes you're all in on your job, and sometimes you let things happen at work because you need to be there for your kids. So I'm married 35 years. I have 3 adult children. It was unbalanced. And I think as a woman, I can only speak on behalf of women. I don't know how it is for men, but you're doing everything you need to do at work. You are loading the dishwasher. You're making sure your kids are at their practices when they need to be there. I had good support on my side, but I think it's just some days are just crazy, and at the end of the day, you don't know how you got through it. But I'm not sure that a work-life balance is always in play. I'm not sure it's always balanced.
Yeah, what I would add to that is, I'm not going to use a really finessed word, but I think life is lumpy, and you have to take it at bits and pieces of time, right? So everybody's priorities shift over time, and I guess my one advice to you is just make sure that you're doing at least 2 things passionately at any given interval, but also understand that everything changes, everything is dynamic, and ultimately it is really up to you to set your boundaries and your limitations. If you want to, make sure that you are becoming the best at whatever sport it is that you're pursuing, that's a priority for you, right? So you're gonna have to set limitations and boundaries in other areas of your life. But the biggest headline here is it's lumpy, and it's in your hands to set your boundaries.
I think for me, I have 2 young babies, 1 and 2 years old. So
wow.
I'm in the thick of it, I guess you would say, major baby mode right now. And sometimes it's really scary. I work with Allie for Fox Sports, and I do studio, and I used to think about, I think I texted you the other day saying, what did we do when we didn't have kids? Yeah. You used to have all this day, the whole day to study and analyze and prep, and that's not—
So enjoy it.
Yeah.
All of you, I'm looking at each and every one of you.
It's not the case anymore, but what I do realize is I'm probably much better at my jobs now that I do have kids, because first of all, I know how to multitask better than I ever have before, and I'm just way more efficient. And I just do my job better, and I'm a better mom because I do other things for me. That's really important. So when I am with my babies, it's the best. But I'm also just really efficient with what I do. And it also gives me confidence that I am doing a lot of things to be able to do my job better. So it's a work in progress for me. I'm still figuring out what works for me and my family. And I have an amazing husband and system that help me do what I do. But I also think that I'm still working on it, and I'm still figuring it out. And when my girls, maybe next one, go to school, I'm gonna have a lot more time again, and it's gonna just go through different phases. So right now, I think, but what you both said, this is my current state of life, and I'm doing what I can, and I'm trying to just kick butt doing it.
Agreed. I have a 1.5-year-old at home. And I used to be able to spend a lot of time, more time, I think, kind of getting involved in cultural activities, going to shows or seeing, my friends DJ or going to a fashion show or something. And a lot of creativity comes out of that, but I can't do those things anymore, very much. I used to, every night there was something that I had to go check out or do. And now with Goldie, my daughter, you know, I actually want to be with her. I don't want to be at my friend's fashion show. And I'm finding it a shift about that, where I'm spending, you know, a lot of time at the office and then a lot of time at home. And it's just being able to get that inspiration and that culture from other places now, you know? And that's my newest challenge. So it's like, how can I feel like I'm still connected to this downtown fashion community now that I'm an old lady with a kid, you know? So, you know, thank God there's Instagram, you know, and there's other ways, and I read a little bit more when the baby goes to sleep and stuff. So that's my current challenge. But I'd much prefer like taking a bath with Goldie at night than like, you know, like going to a show or something. So I like the trade-off.
I think of work-life balance as something that you try to do over the scope of a lifetime, not day to day. You know, I can tell you, like when I was in residency, working over 100 hours a week, doing 36-hour shifts, there's no way you can fit anything else in. You know, barely saying hello to my husband, you know, over a meal. So I think it's a question of figuring out, okay, this is the period I'm doing this. This is the period I'm going to focus on this in my life. And I think the other myth that's out there, and this is for men and women, that you can have it all. I think once you let go of that, and you just focus on, this is what I'm really passionate about, this is what I'm going to prioritize. You know, for example, my husband and I have made a very conscious decision not to have kids. My two sisters are having kids, and I'm so happy to be their aunt, and Grant loves, you know, his nieces. But we also understand what our bandwidth is and what was doable and what we could do well. And you know, I think everybody's going to choose a little differently. So don't feel bad about that. You know, whether it's maybe not having kids, maybe not going for the promotion at work because you want to have a little bit more time. Just do what's right for you.
And last question is actually going to come from me, sorry. No one's success occurs on an island. And I want to know what your community looks like and how it's actually impacted your career. Go ahead, please, okay. Rosemary.
I like lean in, but I love lean on. So I have a community of people that I lean on. And I've heard several times about the importance of networking. But people like to share what their experiences have been and what their learnings have been. So I like to lean on a community of people, men and women, asking them, getting advice from them, and just expanding that as a broad base of mentorship.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately for me, I can't look at any time where I've hit a life milestone and I could say it was done entirely by me. I think little by little you'll realize that you need people and team and supporters to get anything done and to make any sort of movement. So for me, I lean on people every single day within my team, within my company. Even in a professional setting, I'll use the example of yesterday's campaign. Yes, we could have put those campaigns together, that campaign together on our own, but we needed to lean on the See Her organization to make sure we were doing it in the right way. And then also outside of our industry, I have many mentors, and it's awkward. Sometimes you'll have this moment where you'll see someone and you'll have a really good conversation, and you've just got to be like, hey, I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again. This has been an awesome chat, but do you mind if I just, you know, get your email address and maybe like we can have a mentorship relationship? People are so afraid to ask that. And I know when people ask me that, I'm like, that's awesome. You were so bold to ask me that. Yeah, let's talk to each other, you know, once every couple of months. So I think it's important for you, to have people within your system, your friends, family, peers, but also it's great to get that perspective of people that you don't typically ever, you know, cross paths with.
I think it's really cool looking back, just when I was younger and seeing how many of my mentors and role models came from when I was a kid, when I was in school, when I was playing club soccer in multiple sports, and then going to college, and every different phase in my life, playing collegiately and then professionally for 10 years, teammates, coaches, teachers. You know, when I started the business, there's a venture capitalist that's a mentor now in my business world. So I just feel like it's evolving, and sometimes you don't even know that someone's going to be a mentor to you or a leader to you, but they will. And it's so cool for me to even like go back to my high school coach, who I'm extremely close to, who helps me just with like life stuff, right? And you just never know when someone's going to truly play a role in your life. But it's also, you know, we talk about this community. I just love this family aspect, and I think that, you know, yesterday was Women's International Day, and I think that part of that is actually like supporting each other. And I love being part of a group like this, and I love playing soccer and sports that, you know, we can always go back and talk to each other because we have that foundation. Soccer is our foundation. And as you get older, you are going to lean on people more or in a different way than you did before. And that's like the fun part of the journey. And I think also the most natural thing to networking is just being natural about it and truly meeting someone because you want to meet a new person and hear their perspective. And it's crazy what that relationship could turn into for you.
I think for me, with Made Me, I try and create a community around it. I think for young women getting into fashion, it's very scary. You'd think fashion would be a welcoming place for a woman. It seems like it would, right? Like, you know, all the big fashion houses you see, their biggest moments, their biggest shows are their women's lines, you know. But the reality of that business is most of the heads of those houses are men. And most of the designers behind those women's brands are men. And it's a funny industry that uses women's buying power but doesn't support women. And so what I've tried to create with Made Me, and not I haven't done it in this like kind of contrived kind of way where I'm like, oh, I'm going to create this company and only hire women. I naturally want to hire women because I don't think they have an equal seat at the table in fashion. Even though they're just as educated and just as talented and, you know, great graphic designers, they just do not have an equal seat at the table. So at Made Me, most of the people that I've hired are women. I have 2 really great designers. My whole sales team is women. You know, my business manager is a woman, and I really try and create this female community for young, like-minded women.
So I hate the expression networking. I don't like that expression at all because to me it feels very transactional. I think you should be trying to build community and approach people with curiosity and generosity, not, you know, what are you going to give me? But just, you're a really cool person, and we would love to, wouldn't you love to share experiences together? And I think just to echo, I think it was Monica who was talking about meeting people outside of your sphere. I mean, I could so easily hang out with only doctors, and I actually find that super boring. And to, you know, I do have like every 3 months my doctor lady friends dinner with my, you know, friends in town who are physicians, and, you know, that's nice to catch up with them. But I mean, to give you an example, I just got back from a 2-day retreat with 8 other professional women. We didn't know each other before. And some of the most interesting conversations, like there's one woman who just started her own law firm, another woman who's the CEO of a software tech company, and the kinds of things that you learn from people completely outside of your field. And you can help each other in ways, and it's not a transactional help, it's more of a sharing experiences and learning how to think about things differently. You know, how a doctor thinks about things is different from how a journalist thinks about things, which is different from how, you know, Rosemary would think about things. So, you know, I think the more you can cross industries also in your community, you know, the stronger you'll be.
I lied. I have one more quick one, but it's quick because I know you have a flight to catch, and you only get one sentence each of you. We're trying to create leaders here. You guys are leaders in your industry. If the people that work for you or work with you could describe you in one sentence, what would you hope they would say about you? Oh. You get to go first, and you can leave. No, I'm just kidding.
One sentence. A supportive fixer. 2 words,
Actionable.
not even a
That's
sentence.
Good. That's all
go
right.
on. Okay.
We're improvising.
I would say an inspiring leader.
Okay, that's good.
Hardworking and passionate.
Nice. those were good ones, guys. Jeez, I'm stumped.
One sentence.
I would say hardworking and multifaceted.
I'd say multidisciplinary change maker.
You guys heard it. Say thank you to this fantastic panel. Absolute pleasure, yes. You have the leaders of industry, all incredibly unique paths, but they are hopefully imparting to you guys tools that you're going to take going forward. They are going to exit. You guys are going to move to your breakout sessions with your confidence, community, and career. This time, the purple is going to correspond with confidence, and that is going to be in the back of the room. Green is going to correspond with community, which will be upstairs. And finally, the pink will be the career, and that will be in the front of the room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. Nice to meet you, Rosemary. Safe journeys.
Oh, it's bright. It's bright light. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Everybody wants to sit down. The lights are really bright up here. All right, so thanks again for coming. I think we're going to spend a little bit of time. You guys have got some worksheets on your table, so this is going to be interactive. Nobody has to worry, but we're going to have a little bit of an interactive portion of this as well. But first, I thought I'd start by, part of what we're here to talk about is how we elevate women and basically ourselves in corporate culture. And one of the things I thought I would do is first give you a little bit of context about who I am and a little bit of background about me and kind of where this fits in with my life and my career. So if I were to read for you the resume story of me, my resume would read something of the fact of I went to Virginia Tech. I was a double major in finance and management with a minor in computer science. I graduated. I got a job straight out of college. I wasn't really looking for a new job. My father, on the other hand, thought I should have a new job. So my father was shopping my resume around. Little did I know. I got a phone call from Deloitte, and I got hired into Deloitte, and that was 23 years ago. So I've been at Deloitte for 23 years. I worked in our commercial practice first for 15 years, basically based mostly out of New York. But I also worked in Paris. I worked in the UK. I worked in Singapore, opening offices for us all around the globe. All at a very young age, at a very young career start when I started at Deloitte. After about 15 years, I was asked to actually move down and start to head up some of our work in our federal practice down in DC. I really had no desire to be in our federal practice, but someone said, we're going to turn an audit client into a consulting client. Can you go give it a shot? I said, sure. I said, I'm happy to do that. So I went down, opened that business up, and we actually grew something from 0 to about $75 million within about 3 years. For the last 4 years, I've actually been leading our cyber practice. So our cyber practice is about 1,500 people, about $350 million around the US, and I'm very proud to do that. As well as the other thing that I do in my spare time, I also co-sponsor our well-being, which is very important to me. So lots of things. We could sit there and say it's been a great career, 23 years. I've been a partner at Deloitte for 13. So incredibly well professional from a professional resume perspective, all great. The one thing you don't see when you read my resume is that I almost died 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, I was really tired. The only symptom I had was being incredibly tired. How many of you try to push through every time you're tired? Right. I would probably have raised my hand as well. Kept telling myself, it's nothing. You're just overworked. There's a lot going on. Some things, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Went to a bunch of doctors. Doctors all looked at me and said, you're fine. You're overworked. Just keep doing things. Get some more rest. How many hours of sleep do you get? I looked at them. I lied. 6 hours of sleep. They're like, you don't get 4 hours of sleep. Well, come on, Deb. Get more sleep. You'll be fine. I kept feeling tired, literally to the point where I couldn't go up the stairs. Something was wrong. So I told myself, I'm going to go to the best doctors because they're going to be able to figure out what's wrong with me. So I put in to go to Hopkins, and Hopkins has got about a 6-month wait to get in. And so I kept increasingly getting tired and tired and tired and more tired. And I go to Hopkins, and my husband and my daughter, who are both sitting back in the audience, hi husband, hi daughter. We all go to Hopkins, and we decide we're going to do that the Monday after Easter, because I was like, oh, we should go to the zoo, and we can go to the aquarium. They're both looking at me like, okay, seriously, we're going to go to the doctors. So we go to the doctors. They do a series of tests. I still make everybody go to the aquarium. We go to the aquarium. We go home, and there's 7 missed messages on, at the time, voicemail. 7 mixed messages. I'm like, this is the world's best doctor. They call you back 7 times. I haven't been out of there that long. My husband looks at me, and he goes, this can't be a good thing. Like, no doctor is calling you back 7 times, right? So I go to call him back, and they called right when we were going to go call back, and it's about 8 o'clock at night at this point. And the doctor goes, I just emailed you a prescription. I was like, great, you guys have figured out what's wrong with me. They're like, no, you need to head to the hospital immediately. And I was like, excuse me? What are you talking about? And they said, you need to head to the hospital, and you need to get an emergency blood transfusion. And everything went through my head, like, that can't possibly be. I don't want to go to the hospital at night because that's when the drunks go. Like, I'm going to be on the 3rd shift by then. Like, there's 0 chance I'm doing that. So needless to say, we show up at the hospital. And if you ever want to get through the hospital really quickly, emergency blood transfusion, by the way, is the way to go. Because like I skipped the line, which did have a lot of drunks sitting there in the waiting room. And I go back in, and I'm always, I'm never really white, like in terms of tone of my skin. And the nurse comes back, and she goes, those doctors at Hopkins, they really think they know everything all the time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, there's no way you could need this. Your skin's not pale enough, you're not white enough, you don't look like all the signs. And then again, a whole nother round of emotions go through my body. I'm like, shoo, I was like, I don't need a blood transfusion today. She comes back about 15 minutes later with blood in hand and apologizing profusely and basically said, you're not going anywhere. So long story short, I have a very severe autoimmune disease that has caused my blood to basically leak internally in my body. And unlike an external wound, you don't know that you're actually internally bleeding. So the reason I kept getting tired, again, for those people who don't know, because I didn't know any of this, but your red blood cells carries oxygen to your brain. So the other thing that apparently should have happened had I not gotten that blood transfusion within hopefully a day or two, they said, is I should have had a stroke. Because oxygen, again, to your brain is what you need for all of us to be there. And so incredibly, incredibly difficult for me to process all of that because I went through so many doctors telling me nothing was wrong, to feeling incredibly depressed, to wondering what was wrong, to being in the hospital, to getting a blood transfusion, to all of a sudden wondering what the heck is wrong with me. And so when they finally diagnosed me with this autoimmune disease, I now have to get IV medication every 6 weeks, and I'm on chemotherapy drugs every day to keep my autoimmune system suppressed. And I don't say any of that at all to make anybody feel sorry for me. I don't say any of it for you to wonder like, oh gosh, what's wrong? How can we help her? What does she need? I say it because what I think it does is it gives us grit. And I like to call the grit factor. It's what makes each of us who we are in every day of our life. You don't need to have almost died to have grit. There's many things that give you grit and make you move every single day. And part of what we're gonna do today is think about those things that make each of you unique and think about those things that also help you build courage. So how many of you think that you always, like if you have an idea, you always run with it? How many of you run with that idea? That's what I expected. How many of you procrastinate? How many of you think it's a really good idea and never ever actually execute? Okay. So I will tell you a lot of times when you've got those amazing ideas, run with it. Have those ideas and go with it because they're great ideas. And whether they succeed or fail, I say this all the time, you're never going to be successful in this world if you don't embrace failure. So failure isn't because you're a horrible person. It's not because you have weakness. It's not because you did something bad. Failure helps you learn. The important thing about it is how do you learn quickly from failure? So another thing I think we often do and what we'll be talking about throughout today is how do you rebound from that? How do you not allow yourself to, again, sit there and think for 24 hours, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that. 3 days later, I still can't believe I did that. A week later, can you believe I did that? We shouldn't be doing that for a week. We shouldn't be doing that for a day. But here's the other thing is how do you change those things? And so we're gonna walk through what it means to be courageous and what it means to define yourselves as something unique. And so we do have some worksheets. So we're gonna go into, if I can work the clicker, that's me. There we go. So each of you have this worksheet there. They don't look like these bubbles, but there's a laundry list of things. And so I just thought maybe if you guys could take 3 to 5 minutes, and if you look at what do these attributes mean to you? What is it like? What do you think that you would address yourselves and how would you identify? Feel free to select as many of them as that you think would make you who you are. And I'll give you guys, like I said, about 3 minutes, and then I'm going to interject in a minute. And then also feel free to write your own words. If there's words at the bottom that you actually think define you better or might make you unique in your own way. All right, and now I want you to think if you only could choose one. All right, so hopefully you've chosen one. So take 60 seconds each, turn to your neighbor and explain that one unique thing to your neighbor and why it's unique to you. 60 seconds. Doesn't matter if you know your neighbor or not. 60 seconds each, so that'll be 2 minutes. All right, we'll wrap that up for a minute. We've got lots of interactive exercises here, but hopefully by all the talking, everybody felt empowered to feel unique about themselves and special about themselves. So how many of you felt good about talking about yourselves? How many of you does that come natural to? Good, like that. Usually most people are like, yeah, no. So it's important to understand what makes you you, because each of you brings something unique to the table. And again, I asked you to choose one. Hopefully you had many things in there that made you who you are and what that package is. And as I said before, I'm not defined by my autoimmune disease. It is part of who I am. It defines who part of me is. My mother also died when I was incredibly young, and so that defines part of me and who I am. And again, I would go back to my grit, and I talked about grit before. So part of that, and the reason I share that, is again, not, oh, I can't believe that, how could you be young, not have a mother, how is it like to grow up from that capacity? It's more about taking things that happen in our lives and figuring out how they can actually empower us to do things. So I think about that. So when my mother died, I was a teenager. We all, how many of us were rebellious teenage girls, boys in the audience? How many of us were rebellious in our teenage years? Me, totally. Imagine having that happen and being that same person and to have a parent die, right? So for a long time, having a lot of remorse for, I was a crazy teenager at the same time my mother had both breast and pancreatic cancer. Took her to her chemotherapy appointments. I did lots of things with her. And so you could sit there and say, I was a horrible human being, or you can sit there and say, I was a normal teenager. That was probably just being rebellious, going through a very difficult point in her life. And at the end of the day, it's about thinking about what things you want to do with that. So I have a path to determine. And everybody would tell me that one of the things that I'm very, very good at is crisis. So whenever we're in a crisis, I'm very good at being able to shut off certain things to be able to get people through a crisis. And part of that is driven from the fact that I got myself through having my mother die when I was a teenager. So when I think about when things happen and things happen in my life, so we have lots of crises in our daily jobs, but I also have lots of crises in what I do for work. So since I lead our cyber practice, you guys can all imagine there's lots of cyber data breaches, there's lots of cyber instances, there's lots of adversaries out there looking to attack our country and our corporations on any given point in time. A lot of them have people in panic. So when I have an organization calls me that says that they've just had a data breach or that they are being hacked by somebody in a nation state, there's a lot of reason to get anxious or have anxiety over those types of situations. So my ability to calmly sit and talk to people and help them get from point A to point B comes in a lot of handy when we have those types of situations. And for the longest time, I could never figure out why am I so good at these things. And candidly, that's part of the reason why I'm good at that, is how to handle a situation and be able to move from that. So again, understanding a lot of who you are and the attributes, and that's why we did this exercise, the attributes that you have bring character to each of you. And if you understand what that character is and how you can evolve with that character, you're going to be even stronger personally and professionally as you work through your evolution, as you look at where your horizon is. So one of the things that we've got is we obviously we're here to talk about women supporting women, empowering women. There's lots of very big women on the, I was always amazed, like, what do they do with that when they're done with it? Do you think they cut it out and put it in there? Like, is that like posters on the ceiling or something? They're very big. It's a little intimidating over there. But we should all be really proud of where women are in today's day and age, right? We've made so many advancements, whether that's advancements. I now live in DC, so there's lots of advancements. When we look at women in Congress and women on the Hill and women taking more jobs in and out of congressional offices, but we're only making a dent. You think about the number of women doctors and the number of women athletes and the number of women CEOs, we're still only making a dent in the single and low double-digit numbers. And so how do we best encourage each other to have what we call a corporate culture or culture of courage, right? And building upon this courage that I was just talking about a little bit ago. And so when we talk about, I mean, there's many people that were up here on the audience, I'm sure you saw both of the panels, talking about the courage they had, whether that was the first soccer player, referees, coaches. I mean, we had so many stories, amazing stories of women that all had the courage to take that first step and do what they felt was important to them in their careers. And so we're going to look at activity 2, which is really how do you look at having your story. So obviously you heard my story. You can look at other types of stories. So again, the one we're going to focus on in the second activity is, have you ever been the first fill in the blank or the only fill in the blank? And again, I can talk about lots of times having lived my last 23 years in cyber and technology. I'm typically the only woman, particularly the only woman executive. I can add the only woman executive that wears leather pants to work, which actually does happen on a regular basis. But that's me, and it makes me unique in who I am. And so at the end of the day, there could be lots of firsts that you have or onlys that you have, but it's how do you actually embrace those onlys and make you even stronger than you are today. So in the second exercise, what I'd like you to do is, again, work in small groups. I think you can break up. We've got tables here. You guys can split in halves over there. And talk about, have you been the only woman ever blank? And it could be anything. Again, it could be person from a small town, introvert. It could be based on race. It could be based on what your background is. It could be anything of anything in terms of the first of something. And what I want you guys to talk about is, did you use it to your advantage, or did you use it as a detriment? So again, I can think of situations along my career where I've done both, but what I want us to encourage each other to talk about is how we can actually use them to our advantage. Because when we see the lens on ourselves, often the first thing is I'm an introvert, that must be a bad thing, because I don't speak up. Or there's too many extroverts in the room and I don't have a minute to speak. Or you could be an extrovert. I'm talking all the time and no one wants to hear me, so I need to shut up, right? So there's easy ways, which is me, by the way. So it's easy to take an advantage or a disadvantage for the I'm the only, whatever it is that you want to fill in the blank. So part of what this exercise, I want somebody else who's not you to hear what you're saying, because they're automatically going to be like, oh, the positive is this, or oh, the opposite is this, or did you ever think about thinking of it in a different way? And that's what I want this exercise to do. So one person will start with the I was the only fill in the blank. And I'd like you guys to have a discussion around how to turn those into advantages versus actually looking at it from a negative lens. So we'll give you guys about 5 to 10-ish minutes on that one. It'll be a little bit longer, and I'll walk around as well. So go ahead and start with that. I go around, we'll talk. I know, it's on. Don't worry about me. I don't have a mic on. I'll cover it. My mic on? My mic's not on. All right, let's go ahead and regroup. I was going to leave some time for Q&A too, because I was told I should leave some time for Q&A. So, okay, so hopefully everybody, I walked around and heard a bunch of different things, and what I thought was fascinating is listening to so many different onlys. But again, the conversation around okay and, not so what, but, or oh, you were the only this or you were the only that. How do you empower yourselves to turn that into something that's an added value? And the other thing too that I heard a couple of people talk about was self-awareness. So what does it mean if I'm the only? Does that mean that I should alter my behavior? Does that mean that I should be more aware? What should I do? I will tell all of you to never change. Don't change who you are because you're the only. Figure out what that means from a self-awareness perspective, because other people are paying attention. And so again, I don't mean that because it's a bad thing. If you're the only introvert in a room of extroverts, how do you get your words in? How do you look and actually become more comfortable with speaking up if it's a challenge for you as an introvert? If you're an extrovert and you notice someone isn't speaking in a room, pause for a minute. I know it might be challenging. Sometimes it's challenging for me. Take a sip of water, pause, have some silence in the room, because then maybe it'll make it more comfortable for the introvert to speak up and have their voices heard. The other thing that's really important to understand is that everybody with all of these characteristics is very important to who you are, and that each of you add value to the conversation, to the relationship, to the profession, to the activity that you're engaged in at any given point in time. And the more self-aware that you can be about those things will help you empower yourself and to be the best version of yourself. So as we think about what those things are in the only, and again, I brought a couple of only things in, the only thing that's going to make this work, no pun intended, is if you actually commit to making some changes. And again, we talked about earlier, I had everybody raising how many times we procrastinate, how many times we have a good idea, how many times do we think we're going to do something different. I'm going to ask a question. How many of you live in what I call what if world? What if this were to happen? What if that were to happen? What if this were to happen? Okay, so one of my big mantras is not to live in what if world. So how much positivity do we think we get out of what if world? Any? No, because what if is about something in the future that, as far as I can tell, we can't yet change. I mean, if we can, I'm going to be the first one to try and change it. I'm just kidding. But if there's something we can change, it can't be the what if world. We can't change what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We also usually live in the what if world when we're talking about yesterday. What if I had done this differently? What if I had done this differently? What if I had said that instead of this? Well, here's the bottom line. You didn't. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean it's good or it's bad. It just means that you didn't. And so trying to change what I call habits. How many of you brush your teeth today? And my daughter's in the back. Don't raise your hand back there if you didn't, but I think I saw her brush her teeth. How many of you brush your teeth today? How many of you brush your teeth more than once a day? Okay. How many of people believe that they have created a habit of brushing their teeth? Okay. How many of you think that when you were a child, you probably ate the toothpaste while you were learning how to brush your teeth? Okay. Would you call yourself a failure because of that? Okay. So what I'm going to encourage each of you to do is create new habits. It didn't take you very long, maybe for some of you it did, to learn to brush your teeth. No judgment on how long it took you to learn. I probably ate the whole tube of toothpaste, I think, when I was a child, because that was more fun. But you learned it, and you brush your teeth. And how many of you forget? Sometimes, I don't know, late night out, you forgot to brush your teeth. You woke up in the morning, you're rushing out, and mouthwash is not an alternative to brushing the teeth, just saying. But many of you may do that. And so if you do that, you still will brush your teeth. You're creating a habit. So ask yourself, why don't you create habits about telling yourself how strong you are? Why don't you create a habit about not living in what if world? Why don't you create a habit about thinking about things positively instead of negatively always? And so again, I'm an odd numbers kind of person, so I try to create 3 to 5 new habits a year. I don't try to create 50, I don't try to create 1,000, but I try to create habits. And I have people around me help me remember what habits I'm trying to create. And that hopefully those habits will help me be much more positive, outgoing, energetic, fill in the blank with whatever word you want to choose there, but I'm choosing consciously to be more self-aware and create new habits for myself. So you'll have a commitment card that's on there as well. It's a handout, or I don't know if they cut them. I think they did, yeah. And I want each of you, I know it says first name, last name. I'm not taking them back, so don't worry that anybody else is going to read them. But I want you to make a commitment to yourselves. You are the most important human being in this room right now, you, each of you. So make a commitment to yourselves of what you would like to do. You can set whatever period of time you want to do, but that you're going to actually look to create a new habit so that each of you create a culture of courage, empower yourselves, empower others. So I'll give you a minute or two to write down. You can write 5, you can write 2. Again, I'm an odd number, so 3 or 5 are usually mine. And then I want you to keep these so that you remember every day what habits you're looking to recreate. right, I saw a lot of writing, which is good. People who didn't write and said, I'll just remember later, you won't. Make sure you write it down. And then the more important thing, like I said, is really use these. It's great ways to remind yourself, and I have little tricks as well, because again, it's a habit. So let's not all get hard on ourselves if we don't create it overnight. It doesn't happen right away. Again, it took you guys time to learn how to brush your teeth and to remember and to make it a habit. Even with me, with What If World, when I decided to not live in What If World anymore, I literally would make my password. It's not anymore, so I'm not sharing anything bad from a cyber perspective, says the cyber person. But my password used to be literally no what if world, because how many times do you change your password on your laptop? A lot, right? Or putting Post-its on mirrors, or putting something in your purse, something that's gonna remind you how to create that habit so that you get in the habit of doing what you're committing to each of yourselves. So I'm proud of all of you because I saw a lot of writing. So be sure to, again, take those with you and keep them. And as I said, I've got time for Q&A. I'm an incredibly transparent person, so whatever you want to ask is game, I think. Maybe I'll save that judgment for later. So questions, thoughts, anybody? Anybody? Yep. Oh, we have mics too if people can't hear, which is probably me. Oops. Nope. Nope. You could project too. I could walk over there and hear you also. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, good. So for those of you who couldn't hear, the question was, I don't live in a what-if world, but yet I work in the risk part of Deloitte, which obviously I have to do what-if scenarios. So in my professional life, I can live in the what-if world all day long. It's the Deborah life, because again, what-if world for me, like what if I had said this, what if I had done that? It's negative energy on who you are. For my clients, what if a tsunami happens and we need to look at your supply chain? It's easy to do. And again, with my story before of when my mom died, one of the things, like I said, is easy for me to cut off and just keep moving forward. There's nothing personal associated with that assessment and work and what if. So I'm actually really good at scenario planning. So the what if world in the professional life is great. I think what holds people back is the what if world when you look at it personally. So that's when I say I don't live in the what if world. It's me personally, not in my work world. I live in a lot of that with the risk, by the way. Yep. So I love what I do, and I love what I do 23 years later. How exciting is that? I actually think I love what I do because the challenge I have every day is different. I mean, we're in a services organization that, I mean, I hate to say it, we're selling, ourselves and our capabilities and what we do. Like I said before, I've been all over the world. I've worked with cyber, I've done technology, I work with amazing people. I work in an organization also that empowers women. So we've got great leadership that are women at the leadership level, that are males at the leadership level, but that truly believe in empowerment and opportunity. It's going to sound really hokey, no pun intended, since I went to Virginia Tech. If anybody knows that the Hokies the mascot, you can ask me later what that is. But so it really is the people. I'm surrounded by amazing people. I mean, there's many of them here today. I mean, I'm surrounded by amazing people every day. It doesn't mean that there's not some people that I'm not always that crazy about. But for the most part, I'm surrounded by amazing people, and I've had such great opportunities. The other thing, and I joke about this a lot at Deloitte, is I'm pretty sure we paint buildings somewhere. And basically, if it's something you want to do in the consulting world, at least how my brain works, I have an opportunity to do it here. So why not try it here? Unless I want to go do something completely different, be a doctor, go build huts in Uganda, which was a dream of mine for quite some time, to be honest with you. But unless I want to go do something completely different, I have such great opportunities. And I think because I'm constantly changing what I do on not like a daily basis, but on a regular basis, I'm constantly changing what I do. It gives me that passion to actually get up and enjoy not only what I'm doing every day, but the people I'm surrounded by every day. So, thanks. Yep. So she asked, what does success look like for me? This. And I don't say that cockily or egotistically or anything from that perspective. I don't aim for success, to be honest with you. I also don't aim for perfect. There is no perfect in my world, and again, I'm pretty sure my husband and daughter could attest to that back there in the back of the room. Success for me is being happy at this point. I'm lucky to be alive. And so when I think about success for me, do I aim for the glass ceiling? I actually hope I can break it. And candidly, it's different for me today than it was before. Today, it's the fact that I literally love the fact that, this is what I wear to work. And the number of, candidly, young females that come up to me and say, I love that you're breaking barriers and you're not, wearing a three-piece suit or you're not in a dress with heels. And don't get me wrong, I have those too, and I wear those as well. But the fact that I can do that, my boss actually says, you're really nutty, Deborah. Like, you come up with these ideas and you just do it. And he goes, and that's what I love about you. Like, the fact that you'll just do things. One thing that you don't see up here with me today, our family actually, I was the brunter of this idea and did it. We raised a service dog from 7 weeks old until 14 months. And yesterday we had I'm going to be very proud about it. We had the very proud moment of bringing him back to the foundation. So he's actually going to go to serve a veteran or someone with PTSD. And so he spent 14 months with us. And he came to the office with me 5 days a week. And so when you ask me what success is the fact that I raised an amazing puppy from literally 7 weeks old to 14 months old, and he's going to go help someone have a better life. So at the end of the day, that's success totally for me. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but I know if I can bring that kind of passion and energy and help somebody else, that's pretty cool. What else? The light is really bright, yes. What single word would I use? You should really be asking that for my husband and my daughter. I'm kidding. I actually really think, so I would probably use the word that I would use would probably be authentic. I mean, literally what you see is what you get. And it's not always easy to be authentic or transparent. And so for me, I think that has led to my success. I think the reason that I can say that I'm successful because of all the people and why I stay and why I'm doing the things is because I share a lot of who I am and everything that I do. So it's literally blood, sweat, and tears. I give 110% to things. And I share these stories because I want people to get close and I want us to have that type of relationship where we should be able to talk and have dialogue. So I do think for me it's authentic. Yep. Got time for like one more. Yeah. Oh, good. What are some habits you're working on? Again, question for my family back there. Habits I'm working on for myself. So I actually thought, so I have a lot of people who come and talk to me, and actually a little bit ago I was interviewed by Harvard Business Review that ask like the things that I do. Like, I'm not very good at, everybody's always like, Deborah, you're amazing. Like, I mean, there's lines of people who come to see me and I'm always like, yeah, that's great. Like, so I'm trying really hard to say thank you, because that's always really important. So when people give you compliments, to say thank you. And again, like I said, not to sound egotistical, I love being the best person that I can be. And so saying thank you is one habit that I'm working on. Another habit, I am a fanatical soul cycler. I'm like kind of fanatical about that. Again, they would attest to that being true. I love working out. And for me, it's not just being able to work out. It's actually a mental break. So for those of you who have ever done it, it's 45 or 60 minutes in literally a dark room with really loud music. You can't have a cell phone. I can't have my watch on. I can't have any distractions. And so for me, it's making that a regular habit in my daily life, not just on the weekends, not just late at night, not just early in the morning, because it gives me that break and that release that I need for mentally 45 to 60 minutes of not really candidly caring. Is anybody trying to find me? I mean, I work, a lot, as we would all do, and again, whether that's personal or professional obligations. So for me, it's making that habit also known to people that I work with. We have a lot of people sometimes who will say, we work so much though, how do you get 5 minutes away? How do you get 45 minutes away? How do you get 60 minutes away? And so now I sponsor events, I take team members out, like we do lots of things so people can see it's okay for you to get up from what you're doing, stop what you're doing, get whatever that mental break is. I know they did a meditation before, so whether that's meditating, going to bike like I do, going to do running, going for an outdoor walk, you also don't need 45 minutes to take a break. You need a minute, right? And so trying to showcase and help other people understand how those habits are easy to put into their own lives are probably the two biggest ones that I'm working on right now. So with that, we're at time. I want to thank all of you for being here today. And again, good luck on your commitments. I'm going to hold you guys to them. So thank you.
Before we get started with the two big powerhouses we have in store for you, just a quick question for you guys. I want hands up. Career, community, confidence. Someone just give me something that you've extrapolated from the breakout sessions that we've had. First, let's start with career. Anyone have anything? Was that enlightening, huh? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Awesome. What about confidence? And speak up, please, so everyone can hear you, too. That was great. Thank you. Confidence. Yep. Go ahead. Stand up. That's brilliant. I love that. And last one, community. No one got anything on community? We're not moving on until we get community. Nothing. You didn't learn anything about community. Building up the people around you, building up yourself. Okay. Both of you, actually. Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Do I say my name or?
Sure, we'd love that.
My name is Anisha, and what I got from community is that it's okay to have mentors and mentees because they help inspire each other and to become ourselves.
Thank you, that is fantastic. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on and bring out our two very special guests to close out the evening. Feels like evening, right? First, help me welcome Jennifer Fisher. She's the Chief Wellbeing Officer at Deloitte. And then Jill Ellis, U.S. Women's National Team head coach and world champion. Welcome, guys. All right, this is going to be fun. Okay, first of all, Jennifer, I want to start with you. What actually is, for all of us who maybe do not know, a Chief Wellbeing Officer?
Well, it's actually quite a common question that I get. I also get told that I have the coolest title ever. But basically, you know, for us at Deloitte, but I think this spans beyond Deloitte, I'd like to say that if you employ humans, you should care about their well-being and how they show up at work every day, because that impacts, regardless of what industry you're in, that impacts, you know, the work product, you know, that they're doing. And so for us, you know, it's really about culture and creating a culture of well-being in an environment where people can take care of themselves, however they define self-care, because there's millions of definitions of self-care. And so really creating that culture that allows people to have a really meaningful career and have a life at the same time, because both are possible. And so it spans from, you know, learning and development programs to tools and resources to a whole host of things. But it's really about culture and setting the right tone and setting the right culture for our people to, you know, make self-care a priority so that they show up in their life every single day the way that they want to.
Awesome. Well, speaking of taking care of yourself, the U.S. team filed their lawsuit today, as we know, or yesterday, excuse me, and it's been documented, Jill, that there's been a big pay disparity between the men's coach and the women's coach in the program. You know, how are you navigating that space, and how do you see things going forward?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's breaking news, but I mean, I think, you know, in terms of just women advancing themselves, you know, I'm all in. I think it's something that anytime we can push the envelope, we can push the bar, I think it's important. So, you know, in terms of our players doing what they feel is necessary, I support them in that. I think for me, on a personal level, I have a daughter. She's 14, and I do believe that if two people have the same expectations, same responsibilities, same pressures in a job, that there should be equal pay for that. You're doing the same job essentially. So, you know, I know that I don't control all of that, but I am a huge advocate for the fact if you're doing the same work with the same pressures, same resources, you should receive the same salary.
Absolutely.
Yep.
For both of you, you know, self-care and personal well-being is obviously a big factor for both of you. You have families and you have to take care of yourself. How are you guys balancing that?
I mean, people talk about work-life balance. I don't think I have. I would fail myself in terms of a grade at that, because I don't. I think even when I'm home, I fail to shut down my brain. And I think, how do I compensate that? I think what I try and do is, so for example, next week I'll be in Mexico. I'll miss my daughter's 14th birthday. But I think what I try and do is empower her, knowing that she's loved, knowing she's important, she's independent, she's a strong spirit. So I think for the things that in the time that I'm not there, I try and invest in her as a person. So it's not measured in minutes. It's really investing in her, and that's kind of how I just get myself through it. Because it's tough at times, but I think when you are locked onto something, you have to be all in with that. And sometimes you have to have an understanding network and family and friends around you to support you in that, in what you want to do.
FaceTime helps too, I bet.
FaceTime is big, yes.
Yeah, and I would just say, this whole notion of self-care and well-being is trendy right now. And so I think my own personal definition of self-care, while bubble baths are luxurious and, going to the spa or eating cupcakes or whatever the kind of trendy definition of self-care is that's out there, all of those things are great and a way to enjoy life. But I think for me, self-care is really about making sure that it's not a reprieve. Self-care is not where I go when I'm so completely burnt out and exhausted that I have no other option. Self-care is about daily choices that I make, and some of them are really hard, like not going out with my friends because I know that I have a big presentation to do the next day or the next week, or to know that I've been on the road and I need to kind of slow down and say no to things, kind of do less. To make sure that I'm getting enough sleep, to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, making sure that the relationships in my life aren't toxic, right? And, aren't bringing in negative energy or negative things. And so I think, while, taking bubble baths and all of that is great, that's a way to enjoy life. That to me is not self-care. That's actually part of the enjoyment of life, and it shouldn't be a reprieve that's where I go when I have no other choice, or that I'm so completely exhausted that my body is just saying, okay, this is it, you're down for the count.
Well, you have to take care of yourself, and beyond that, you guys also have to manage a group of people.
Yeah.
And so how do you get the best? How do you motivate people? How do you guys get the best out of the people that you're responsible to then?
I think as a leader, it's important to model the behavior and to be open and authentic about what it is that you're doing for your own self-care, because that gives the people that follow you or the people that work with you the permission to do the same. And so I'm very open and authentic about it. And, sometimes I fail miserably, and I'm open and authentic about that too, And so I'm very diligent about my sleep, but, I will be honest, I flew in at 11 o'clock last night, and I'm leaving tonight, and I'm not getting home until 11 o'clock tonight.
So you're gonna take that.
Yeah, so, I don't always get it exactly right, but I'm open and honest about that too, because we're humans, and none of us are perfect. But I think, being open and authentic about what matters to you. I mean, it's kind of funny, I'm so diligent about my sleep that, if I'm traveling or I'm with my team and we're out to dinner, they'll be like, Jen, it's like 8:30. We need to wrap it up so you can go to bed, because quite frankly, they know what it's like to be around a Jen that's not well rested. And I don't think they like it very much. So they want to make sure that I get my sleep in it, but it empowers them to do the same.
And for you, Jill?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you stand in front of people and part of leadership is trying to inspire, I definitely think you have to make sure you have the energy to give. I mean, I think being a leader, it is a selfless job at times, and I think that's, to Jen's point, it's making sure that you have the energy and the resources to give, and sometimes faking that. I fake it a lot. Sometimes, I've been up till 3 a.m. and you have to get up and you have to be energized for training, and it's just finding that way of making sure that you put that group first and put their needs first. And, especially in coaching, they don't want to see someone stressed out and frazzled. They want to see someone that's relaxed and say, we've got a plan, this is our plan, and it's not, it's not emotional. And so I do think sleep is a huge part of that, but I don't get a lot of it, but I do think
We'll talk about that later.
It's managing, those pieces for sure.
For you specifically then, with managing a bunch of unique personalities that are incredibly strong.
They're all up there eyeballing you right now.
Yeah, they are.
Larger
tough,
than life.
Right? How do you find that you can get the best out of them? What have you learned now? 2015, flash forward is 2019. What have you learned in that process?
I think, I think the basis for leadership, and I don't know if Jennifer agrees with this, but if you connect with people, you have a greater understanding of the fabric of who they are. So, Rose Lavelle loves her dog, and so sometimes it's checking in about things that aren't related to what you do, aren't related to your job, to show that it's different than just a job. So I think, the connection piece and relating to players, I think, is really important. And I think listening is a huge part of really getting the best out of people. I think you've got to be, I think when I was a younger leader, I was very much, this is the way, and you try and come up with all the answers. And I think as I've grown, I recognize that sometimes those guys have great answers, and it's okay to have their input, and it's not a weakness to listen. So I think that's, I think trying to facilitate what they need is a big part of them being prepared and ready to step on the field.
And for, I guess, both of you landing in your career paths, I'm sure you went through some, I would say, shifts in the road. How did you end up here? I know you told me that this wasn't always devised or planned.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty unique and exciting story. I've been with Deloitte for 18 years, and starting out, I was go, 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 yes, yes, yes to everything, because I thought that was the way to move up, or to get more responsibility, to get more visibility, until I got myself into a place where I was completely burnt out and couldn't get out of bed, and couldn't function, couldn't get through the day. And fortunately, I have some incredible mentors and some people that wrapped their arms around me, showed me that they cared and that they had interest in me as a human being, and helped me really discover what I was passionate about. But it was, I'd always been passionate about health and well-being my whole life for myself. I think I defined it too narrowly, because I defined it as, okay, as long as I get to the gym 1 hour a day, then I'm good. I didn't really define it holistically as, it's great to go to the gym 1 hour a day, but truthfully, that's not always what we need. But working with my mentors, I realized that this is what I want to do. But Deloitte is an accounting and consulting firm, and quite frankly, I didn't have the vision at the time to say, a leader of well-being at Deloitte is something that we all need. But working with my mentor, and I sat down and I said, I think I might need to leave the firm, because this is what I want to do. And she said, I completely disagree with you, because if you need this, why doesn't everybody else need this? And that kind of opened my eyes to, for all of you, don't limit your perspectives or limit what you can do in life based on roles that currently exist. If you have a passion, or you have, bring that, show up with that, and see what you can create from it. Because if I hadn't had that discussion with my mentor, and if she hadn't said, go put your business case, this is something that everybody needs, I probably wouldn't have gone down that path. I probably wouldn't be sitting on this couch today. So that really opened my eyes to say, hold on, I belong here, and this belongs here, and we need it. And so it's been an incredible journey. I think I told you earlier that at least once a week I pinch myself. So
hopefully not too hard.
No.
For you, I know you grew up around football in England.
Yep.
Did you always see yourself as a manager?
Oh no. It wasn't, I think, similar. There wasn't a viable career path when I was playing. Even, girls in England didn't play, so it wasn't ever something. I love sport, but I didn't think it was ever going to be a career. I actually went to graduate school, and then I went into the business world for a couple of years as a tech writer. And I was doing okay.
What's a tech writer?
You write technical information, and then you teach it. So I was working for a company called Northern Telecom at the time. Anyway, so I did this for like 2 years, and I was like, what am I doing? But again, there wasn't really a viable path. So I remember she was our assistant coach when I was in college. She called and she said, Jill, I've got this second assistant job for $6,000 a year at the University of Maryland. And I was doing all right. I was like 23, and I was probably making like 40, which was a lot of money back then. And I was like, okay. And my mother was like, are you freaking nuts? And my dad was like, go for it. My dad's a coach. And I did. I just, I chose passion over a paycheck, and I just took a leap of faith, and I went to take this job, and I fell in love with what I was doing. And gradually, as I hung in there with it, the job kind of, there's more jobs and more careers, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it was almost kind of forced, but it wasn't planned. It was it wasn't something, you know, people sort of say, oh, follow your passion. Well, I had a passion, but there wasn't anything that was viable to do with it. So I would say, you know, my advice to you guys is find something that you truly enjoy, and there's going to be a lot of different pathways to get to where you want to go. So if you come out of the gate or you come out of college, I had no clue. I did a law internship my junior year, hated it, knew I wasn't going to do that. So you find a lot of different things. So don't feel like you have to have all the answers right away.
Well, along your pathway, was there any decision that you made or anything you did that you would go back and change?
I've made a lot of mistakes, to be honest with you. I think like one of the things I tried to do everything myself, and I think when you suddenly figure out that there are smart people in the room and it's okay to share and ask, I think that's an important lesson I learned. But yeah, I mean, I remember I was at UCLA and you know, there was some things said, and I was a bit of an emotional person at that time, and I walked upstairs, I said, I'm done, and I went and quit. I went home, I said, screw it, I'm done, you know, and then gradually I'm like, what have I done, you know, kind of thing. And fortunately, my boss was mature about it, but I think what I've learned is to temper, not to react, but to try and just, you know, really, I'm not super emotional, but I need to think things through and give myself that time to process. And I need instant reaction to things, and I've learned to control that a little bit.
What about for you?
So, I mean, I think neither one of us or any of the women that we've had speak today would be here if we hadn't made mistakes along the way, or, you know, kind of, there's a graphic out there that many of you have probably seen that kind of, you know, talks about life and your career, that, you know, in your mind you think it's this, you know, straight linear path, but what it really looks like is like a bunch of scribbles that, like, you know, a little kid did. And so I certainly felt that. When I went into college, I actually, even though I worked for an accounting and consulting firm, I studied accounting, and I got 2 years into that, and I said, there's no way I can do this for the rest of my life. I'm not a math-oriented person, yet I still ended up in the accounting and consulting world. So I think all of my paths eventually converged. But if you had told me even 5 years ago, and I've been in the chief well-being officer role for 4 years, if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be doing this, I would have told you, no, you're not right, you know. So I think it's just, you know, and there's been many mistakes along the way. I agree with you. I mean, you know, there's an old adage of, you know, you always want to be surrounded by people that are smarter than you. That's absolutely true. You know, rely on your team and the people that you have hired, empower them and trust them. And I think most importantly, you know, have their back when they make mistakes. I mean, I've always felt like, you know, somebody has had my back when I made mistakes. And so I think as a leader, and as you guys are going into the work world, you know, having your team's back when they make a mistake. I mean, none of this, unless you're saving lives, which some of you might want to be doctors, so if you make a mistake, that's probably pretty bad. You know, but in the work that I do, you know, I mean, mistakes happen, and you learn and you grow from those, you know, and I think we have to kind of change the paradigm a little bit on how we view, especially as women, how we view failure, and it's okay to fail and to make mistakes and to learn from those things. And I think where we fall is we don't learn from them, or we just, you know, quickly move on and kind of want to tuck that under the rug a little bit because we don't want to talk about it. But there's a lot of power in talking about those things.
So is there a specific failure or challenge that either of you have faced that you look back on and you're incredibly proud to have overcome?
So I think for me, and I talked a little bit about it previously, was, you know, I don't know if it's like one specific failure, but I think broadly, and what led me here today where I am is I was the person that said yes to everything, you know, and I think that's a big mistake. I think you need to figure out, you know, you're not going to have the whole plan for your whole life, but you can't physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually say yes to everything. That's not sustainable. And so, you know, that's kind of what led me down the path of burnout, was saying yes to everything, believing that was going to get me where I was going. The truth is that I didn't really know where I was going. I was just saying yes to what other people wanted me to do. That wasn't defined by me. And sometimes you're going to have to do that, right? It's not all like, you don't always get to say no, but boundaries and kind of understanding what is important to you and where you want to go, I think is really, really important. And I like to talk about having the courage to do less, but doing less better, you know, and that's really hard. But it was a huge lesson for me, because, You can't be everything to everyone all the time and take care of yourself. It just, those things they don't last. They're not sustainable. It's not real. You can have everything. You just can't have it all at the same time.
Fair enough. For you, Jill?
Well, I think obviously in the job I'm in, I mean, it's so black and white failure, right? It's winning or losing. So I think for me, dealing with failure is probably one of the things, something, you know, we should touched upon, because initially I think it was something that I let sit with me, and I mean, failure can either consume you or it can strengthen you. And I think when I was younger, initially it started to sit and get toxic and be like, okay, is this, you know, you start to devalue what you are and who you're about. And I think that shift of suddenly going, you know what, this is something, there is no perfect coach out there that's won every single game. That it is, once you understand that it is a part of that success pathway, then I think you come to terms with it, and then you realize there's so much benefit in it. I mean, even in our games, the games that we lose, we learn more about. The games that are harder, we take away more. And I think if you can apply that to your life, it's actually in those hard moments where you're at your breaking point, where you're not sure if you can get through it, or how do you solve something. That's where you start to tap into your strength in terms of who you are. So I think I've taken failure now as not being a reflection of me, but of being something that can put fuel in my tank, and it can help me be better. You know, took UCLA to I don't know how many Final Fours, but it was a lot. And you know, there is that period where you kind of go, wow, would I do anything different? And to me, it's like, I know I'm going to continue to prepare and do the things that I believe in, and I think it will pay off. And you know, so that's, yeah, it's a part of it, and I don't think you can shy away from it, and you can't let it take your soul.
That's awesome. And I know a lot of these young women are going to face situations where pressure starts to ramp up. And whatever field they go into after college, or maybe 5 years down the road, you're heading into a World Cup. I mean, there's nothing that gets hotter than that. Yep. How do you manage that? How do you keep your team at bay?
Yeah, I mean, multiple things. People talk, I mean, I think part of it is once you understand that that's a part of it, it's not this thing out there, right? And so I think, first of all, I have an incredible group of players that absolutely love, you know, we talk about living in the pressure cooker. And I truly believe that it strengthens you, because I was that kid that never did my 20-page paper until the night before. You could call me a procrastinator, but I also believe that I needed that internal push to really bring out the best in me. And so that's sometimes where you look at those big moments, you go, but it will bring out the best in us. So that's one approach. I think part of it.
Telling you guys to wait to do your papers.
No.
That's what I heard.
But you'll be fine. But I think, you know, and I think the other thing about pressure is how do you actually manage that? And I think you know, I'm sure you guys have a support, you know, having the people that matter are the people that matter. Everybody else don't give a shit about them, right? I mean, honestly, it's like you've got to make sure you focus on, have your group, have your core around you that you trust, that you believe in, and don't worry about what other people think, because they're not in it. I mean, everything you do in your life, anybody sees just the tip of the iceberg. So nobody can really understand what position you're in, what you do, because they only see the tip of the iceberg. But have strength in that piece that sits under there, that you're doing the right thing. So for me, Allie, it's about us being prepared. We're playing the toughest schedule. We're trying to try different things to make sure that we are 100% prepared to step into that pressure cooker. And then it is enjoying that moment, because it's a privilege to have that responsibility. And so we're fired up about it.
What would you say is different from this squad from 2015 to 2019?
I mean, we are, I would say, chronologically a younger group, and probably if you count the caps, the number of times that we're probably not as numbered, but I think the spirit of what they're about is a common thread. So I think we have the experience, but I think that competitiveness, I could go soccer on you, but I'm not going to go soccer on them. But I think overall it's a group that's hungry. You know, people are talking a lot about us defending our World Cup, and this group, they haven't won one. They're going to go out and win one. It doesn't matter what we've done in the past, it's what's in front of us. So that's really been our approach.
And for you, Jennifer, back to the pressure situation, how do you manage that? How do you tell your people, and when you're the one that's instructing them, how to deal with those situations?
Yeah, so I think, you know, pressure or stress, however you want to talk about it, is, I mean, we need stress in our life. Without stress, we'd actually all die. And so I think a good way to think about it is, I mean, when you go to the gym and you want to grow your biceps, you do bicep curls, you stress them out, and then you recover, right? So like you don't do bicep curls 7 days in a row or 14 days in a row. And so when we talk about stress and kind of pressure in the workplace, we talk about it in terms of, you know, learning to use it to enhance your performance, but the best way to do that is to actually make sure that you're intentional about your recovery. And so when you are chronically stressed or chronically under pressure that is too much to handle, that's when you're going to burn out. But if you are intentionally seeking stress, you know you have a big presentation coming up, an interview, whatever it is, you know, kind of use that stress for a positive and kind of use that to fuel you like you would in a game, but then make sure that you have planned recovery. So don't go from, you know, and I'm guilty of it, back to back to back to back to back, where you like don't have time to eat, go to the bathroom, take a breath. So it can happen in small bits throughout the day, or it, you know, making sure you're planning your vacation, making sure you're planning time with family or friends, but being intentional about that. And then that way the stress or the pressure doesn't become this chronic thing in your life that over time just becomes too much to bear. But really, I mean, we change the paradigm on stress and say, you know, you need it. It's what helps you perform. It's how you grow. It's how you learn. But be intentional about that recovery.
Is this all stuff that you researched for yourself, stuff that you discovered, or has there been a mentor or someone that you've looked up to that has helped you guided you in this process?
A little bit of both. I mean, I have incredible leaders that I've had the good fortune to work with that have modeled this behavior, and then given my role and my passion for it and kind of developing the strategy of what this looks like for Deloitte and hopefully the workplace at large over time, so there is research out there that supports all of this, but I've also had the incredible fortune of having great leaders that I've watched model this behavior and that have reinforced this behavior and kind of this thinking within the culture of Deloitte.
And for you, Jill, mentors out there that have helped shape you, and do you continue to look to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think in coaching terms, because I was on the early start of females being in coaching, there wasn't a whole lot, but I think the person that hired me at Maryland, April Heinrichs, who also coached our national team, I think April was somebody that, I think the most important thing that I got was someone can do it. And so that's, you know, it was kind of that see it, be it kind of thing. And I suddenly saw that someone could have a career in coaching. And so I think that was important. You know, and being her assistant, it was, I think, I got a lot of good takeaways, but I just remember her meeting with players and was always very steady and never emotional, you know, just could get the point across. And so there was something to be said to that, not being too high and too low. So there were a lot of things just in terms of seeing her behaviors that I think were helpful. But yeah, I mean, I think now, I mean, I don't think I had the benefit of mentors, a lot of mentors, because there weren't a lot. And so I would look outside of what I did. You know, my father was a tremendous mentor for me in just, you know, managing life and things like that. They got a lot of experience.
If you guys were to look back or impart to these young women, the biggest strength that you had in getting to where you are, I mean, here you're paving the way, Jill, as a head coach on the national team. You crafted your own position at Deloitte and really created your own industry. What would you tell these women has probably been the most single important factor in helping you get there?
Go for it. So I would say don't limit, you know, I think a lot of the things that held me back initially was my own internal beliefs that I didn't belong or that I didn't have a seat at the table or that I was an imposter and that everyone else around me was smarter, better, belonged here, and I didn't. And I think once I was able to shed that and kind of pave my own way and see things differently and kind of see, you know, nothing is impossible, you know, and I think if you are, you know, you might not, you know, to your point, I mean, you might not find a role that's your dream job, find something that you enjoy doing. It might not always be your exact passion in the world, but you can always bring your passion to work with you and show up with that passion, give that passion to others, share it with others. That helps you build camaraderie and connection with others, which is what we all really seek. And that brings meaning and purpose into your work. But, you know, just really show up with your passion and be who you are, and don't limit your own beliefs as to what you should and shouldn't be, or what you can and can't be, or compare yourself to those around you and limit yourself by those beliefs.
I needed to meet you earlier.
Shit. I needed to meet me too earlier in life.
Exactly. I mean, I think, gosh, if I could peg it to one thing, I think persistence is probably something that has served me well. I think there, doors are going to shut at times, failures are going to happen, doubts are going to creep. I think just the persistence in what you do and what you believe in, not settling, I think is, I say this frequently to my daughter, and she reminds me too, I'm a work in progress. There's no perfection here, right? In terms of, so it's that commitment and that persistence to continue to be better every day at what you do. It sounds cliche-like, but I think that there's no end point. And so I think just being persistent in what you do, to whether it's education, job, being time, whatever you do, be persistent at it, because you will reap the benefits of it.
So true.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to open it up now for you guys to ask questions. So we'll get the mics going, and I think we have our first question up here. And come on, I want you guys to stand up and tell us your name. I'm changing the rules.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. I think I might be the youngest person here. I'm 17. I'm still in high school. And Jill, I have this picture of us from the 2014 World Cup qualifying.
Okay. Wow.
My
You came
question
prepared.
is, how difficult was it to take over such a successful program, and what is the best part of your job?
God, that's a great question. You're right, because when I thought about it, I'm like, we were Olympic champions, we won the World Cup, we were ranked #1 in the world, and you're kind of like, okay, where do you go from here? I think two things were in my favor. Is one, we hadn't won the World Cup in 16 years, and two, I had an incredible group of women that when you deal with elites, they're always looking to push and look for what's next. And so I think the first thing when I first meeting I ever had with the group, I put up the quote, even if you're on the right track, if you sit there, you'll get run over, because I knew it would get their attention, because no matter how much we'd attained, we still wanted more. And so we had to push to grow. So I think, that was a big part of it. What was the second part of the question?
What is the best part about your job?
Working and doing something I love. I love the game. From the time I was 7 years old, I've loved this sport. I never thought I'd have a career in it. So I think my passion for the game and my passion for people is the best part of the job.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
Can we take a new picture?
Yes,
I'm sure you will.
Let's stalk some more. That's awesome.
Next question. Yeah, go ahead. If someone will, right in the middle, please.
I'm on that flight. I gotta back up.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm from England.
No.
How do you turn failure into success?
So I think the truth is you can't always, but what you can do is learn from it and take that with you and gain the wisdom of what went wrong, what kind of caused the failure, and take that as an opportunity and carry it with you. So I think for me, you can't always turn failure into success. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can go back and fix things, and ends up being not a failure, I guess, at that point. But I think the biggest thing to take away from failure is don't let it stop you. Don't let it kind of don't let it stop you. Keep going, but take the time to really reflect on it and understand perhaps what went wrong or what it is that you can learn from it and gain that wisdom and take that forward. But just keep moving. If you let it stop you, that's when you get in trouble. And just know that you're human. We're all human. You're going to make mistakes. There's going to be failure. And if there's not, then you're probably not human, right? And so everybody around you, everybody that you see, everybody that inspires you has made a mistake, has had a failure, and that's human. And so just learn from it and keep going and just continue to gain that wisdom.
I wish I could go back and play games over again, but you're right. Sometimes it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I would just echo that. It's just definitely about taking away things that you can learn from. you know, and I don't think it's something that you should be look at and it destroy you. It's something that will strengthen you. And I think that's something when I was young, I didn't recognize that until I was a little bit older and realized, you know what, I'm a better coach today because of the games I've lost. So.
And I can say from an athlete standpoint, and when you talk to the players that have competed at the highest level, it fuels their next moment. Yeah. So use it as fuel too.
Yeah.
Next question, please.
In the back.
My name is Danya. I'm a student at George Mason University, and I want to say thank you to both of you guys for coming over here. Both of you are super inspiring. But I just wanted to ask, since both of you guys are at really high positions in both of your fields, did you guys ever find it difficult moving your way up through your company or as a head coach, like as compared to your male colleagues, pushing your way up there?
Oh, hell yeah. For sure. I mean, I was just saying this last night. I mean, I think in every coaching license that I've ever been to, I was the only female. I mean, it's a very, you know, sport is especially coaching is a very heavy male-dominated sport. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that you sometimes sit in a room and you're by yourself. And by the way, go Patriots, because I know George Mason. But yeah, I mean, I think something. I don't know, Jennifer, you maybe allude to this, but I think it's something that I didn't let it dissuade me from being the only person in the room that was female. I tried to, you know, not try to fit in, but you try and take the strengths away. And I actually think it makes you stronger because you've had to. It is different when you're the only person in the room. But I think it's been challenging. I mean, I would have referees come up and I'd be standing with my assistant coach and they'd go straight to my assistant coach who was male. And so there's all these things that I can reference. But I think at the end of the day, it is about, I lean back to the persistence and the confidence in what you do, regardless of kind of, you know, what's around you in terms of male, female. It doesn't matter. I think it's the belief in what you do. So.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I would say that fortunately, at Deloitte, we have a long history of having very strong female and male leaders, and we're very proud of our history of inclusion. But certainly, I think in my career, I've been the only woman in the room. But I guess I didn't view it that way. I viewed it as, you know, I'm just like them, or I viewed it as an opportunity. Or a challenge to show them that you know, I can do these things just the way that they can. But I didn't really view it as, you know, kind of being the only woman in the room. I viewed it as, you know, we're all here together and kind of an opportunity to really kind of show that women can do exactly the same thing that men can.
Up here, yes, please. I lost our mics. There we go. Thank you.
My name is Tatiana. I'm a graduate student at NYU studying healthcare management and about to walk into the professional world. So I was curious if either of you have any tips on salary negotiation.
That's a good one.
Jill?
Well, seeing as I'm paid a lot less, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think get comfortable with it as soon as you possibly can. It took me a long time to get comfortable with it. It is, you know, because I think oftentimes we think, oh, I'm just, you know, I'm happy to have a job. Get that mindset out. I mean, I would probably read up on it because I'm not an expert, but I think it's, you know, it's obviously looking at what's out there so you're not off either way, high or low. I mean, get yourself what you're worth. But then I think it's having the confidence to have that conversation. I think more times than not, when I've heard people talk about, you know, negotiating salaries, it's like the people listening actually respect you more for just being, you know, very upfront about what you think you can bring and what you're worth. And if people take offense to that, then tough, you know, in terms of, I think that. But yeah, I mean, I've had some interesting situations where I'm like, you know what, I think this is what I'm bringing to the table, and I think this is fair compensation for that. And yeah, it's not always a pleasant thing, and I can't say I'm the best at it, but sometimes you're limited by where you are.
Yeah, and I would echo most of that. I would say, you know, do your research. You know, come in knowledgeable, come in knowing, you know, having realistic expectations, but also having the confidence in yourself to have the conversation. And if you don't feel that what's being offered to you is within what you've researched or within kind of the realm of your expectations, have the conversation and don't be afraid to ask the question.
Last question.
Yep, right here.
Hi, my name is Carly. I play soccer for Bryn Mawr College outside of Philadelphia. I was wondering what each of you thought the most important aspects of a successful team culture are.
I would say probably caring for one another, having each other's back truly, and celebrating one another's success, and then being open and authentic as to who you really are and what you need. And don't be afraid to ask for help and ask for what you need from others on the team, because that just creates an environment where everybody's open and kind of expresses what they need, asks for what they need, and gets what they need. And so when somebody needs a little bit of flex on something, you know, you're all willing to kind of go in and jump in. But I think really it's about caring and having each other's back no matter what the situation is. If you're winning and it's great, if you're losing and it's not so great, you're still all in it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would, you know, we talk a lot within the women's national team, like, you know, what is in their DNA? And I think a team culture, it is respecting what people can do together. You know, I think a little bit it's interesting because I think sometimes when you have a team, not everybody's going to be each other's best friends. But I think it's making sure that the mission of the group is the priority, that people understand that, they know their role. I think that's clear, you know. I think as a coach, as you start to build a team, having hierarchy is actually important within a team, so people can really understand there's no gray area in terms of knowing their role. But I think, yeah, I do. I think team culture, it's very much about fostering a group cohesion in terms of what the mission at hand is, what the task is. And I think, you know, I think the things that are going to help us be successful, it is trust. I mean, I think our players have to trust each other. They don't have to be best friends, but they have to trust each other on and off the field in terms of what they're giving. I think a work ethic is expected within our group in terms of just everybody. You know, we always sort of say, what are you prepared to do for it? Are you really willing to do everything? So I think trust is a massive part of our team culture in terms of having everybody give what they have to give to be successful.
Well, we got to say thank you to you guys. Incredible panel. Two remarkable women who are paving the way for generations to come for you guys, really. And what is so intriguing to me is how different your professions are, and yet the commonalities, the threads that tie the message that you're giving to these young women. So hopefully you guys picked up on that. Thank you, guys. And we have to say a massive thank you as well to Nike for hosting this event, and Deloitte being a title sponsor in this. And Nike actually has put together a video for you. So if you guys were not inspired enough, we're going to share a video that was created to inspire women and girls to not listen to people that say they can't or think something they want to do is crazy. Dream crazy, do more, blaze your own trail, and make your own dreams come true. Let's watch this.
If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. If we want to play against men, we're nuts. And if we dream of equal opportunity, delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged.
It's super, it's gonna need to calm down.
When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry, we're hysterical, or rational, or just being crazy. But a woman running a marathon was crazy.
Officials tried to pull her off the course.
A woman boxing was crazy. A woman dunking? Crazy. coaching an NBA team. Crazy. A woman competing in a hit job, changing her sport, landing a double cork 1080, or winning 23 Grand Slams, having a baby, and then coming back for more? Crazy, 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 and crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do.
So good. I love that. Chills. Thank you, Nike, for that. I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists, all of our speakers that we had today, and perhaps most importantly, thank you to you guys for coming out and showing up. I think if there's one thing that I hope you take away from all these messages of these remarkable journeys, of all these remarkable paths, is that these women were you. And remember that. And every path is going to be different. You're going to find yourself going down one road and you're going to shift. How many times did you hear that narrative today? That where they started is not where they ended up. But at the end of the day, they attack their path with confidence, with grit, with hard work, and I thought, interestingly enough, with awareness. So take in your surroundings. I have no doubt you guys are going to change the world, that we are going to hear much from you to come. So please be bold, be brave, and as they say, be disruptive. Now on to some housework stuff. We are going to close out the day, and we're actually announcing that U.S. Soccer is going to be hosting a second annual SheBelieves internship program that will connect young women, much like you guys, to internships across the country. In collaboration with sponsors and partners of U.S. Soccer, these internships are in fields, so maybe you're looking for a job. You might have to negotiate after all. Internships are in fields or positions that traditionally see fewer female participants to continue spreading the SheBelieves ethos that you can achieve your dreams regardless of your gender. In addition to the day-to-day internship, the program includes pairing interns with a mentor within their host organization, as well as a series of hosted webinars for the entire intern class. The internship will culminate with a visit to U.S. Soccer's headquarters in Chicago, Illinois, which I've actually never been to. We actually have a few 2018 SheBelieves interns in attendance today. Can you guys please stand up? Thank you very much for taking the leap with us last year as being that first class, and congratulations on your success. More information will be sent all to your email if you registered here today, and positions will be posted on the U.S. Soccer website in weeks to come. Lastly, the most incredible women's sporting event in the world is happening this summer. What is it? Yes, that's right. Where is it? France. Who's hosting it? France. Well, I'm sorry. What TV station is it on? Fox. Good answer. U.S. is going to be trying to defend that fourth star. Guys, tune in, watch all the games, and it's not just the U.S. that you want to watch. You're going to want to watch all these countries because they're all exciting. I think this is going to be the best World Cup we've had in terms of the level of play, so please tune in. And we invite you now to stay with us and join us for an Empower Hour. You've heard from session leaders and panelists that have shown bravery and strength at tough times. During Empower Hour, we challenge you to meet someone new, share your story, and perhaps you can be an inspiration to them, and then you can grab inspiration from one another. But more importantly, perhaps just go relax. You guys have had a long day today, and enjoy yourselves. So thank you once again for being a part of our second annual SheBelieves Summit, presented by Deloitte. Go on.